You've reached Avery Silman, owner of Silman Ranch. I'm not available right now. If you're calling about an order, get in contact with Sanford Williard. He'll take care of you. Otherwise, leave a message, and I'll get back to you when I can.
Avery. You stubborn. Why aren't you picking up the phone or answering my text? I swear if you don't... Okay, look. I know how hard that had to be to hear. And I know you. You're stewing right now, running every scenario in your head, already deciding how this is gonna end. But it's over. It's done. I never meant for this to spiral like this, Avery. I thought it'd be simple. You talk to him, get some answers, and come home. But I underestimated him. I didn't think he was that dangerous. I was wrong. But I'm okay now, I promise. Lincoln's people are watching over me. Watching over your niece. Darren will never set foot in a Projexis building again. He won't touch me again. So stop, please, Avery. Just stop. I know you. I know what you're thinking, what you're about to do. But I'm begging you, don't take this any further. Yes, he put his hands on me. Yes, he crossed that line. But I survived. We survived. And I will not lose my only brother over this. Call me. Call me now. We found Jasmine. She's alive. And that has to be enough. Please, Avery, let this go. Let the universe deal with that son of a bitch, Darren Fontano.
The universe is chaotic and consistent at the same time. From its outer reaches to its core, the law remains the same. With anything precious, there are those who would take it. Worldless, space-going scum who would sell a planet's lifeblood to the highest bidder. And damn the consequences. Their thievery ends here. As the universe has its own immutable laws, I have my own law. What kills must die.
There were skirmishes at first. A shootout at the Fort Smith crossing that sent the Arkansas boys packing. The U.S. Navy seized oil rigs off Galveston and Corpus Christi. There were a few run-ins over Texas airspace, but the real shooting hadn't started yet. And in Washington, they talked and talked and talked. Nothing new there. All while the Joint Chiefs worked out how to fight this war. Resolute Fist was a secret operation dreamed up by DARPA. It involved the recruitment and weaponization of exceptions.
What is up, everybody? Hello. Hope everybody's doing good. This is actually our first ever Rippaverse Roundtable. If you're unfamiliar with what this is going to be, this is our weekly stream that we'll be hosting here on the Rippaverse channel. There will be a ever kind of changing panel list that are all from the Rippaverse, obviously, and we're going to be here talking spoilers. We'll talk just basic Rippaverse stuff, just all things Rippaverse. That's specifically what this stream is dedicated for. So 6 p.m. Central every Monday, come over here to the Rippaverse channel and come holler at us, come hang out. Again, we appreciate everybody's support. We showed the collections that we have active. I'll go through those here in a little bit, but I showed the collections that we have active right now that you can go pre-order right now. But today, we are going to be talking Blood Ruth spoilers, everything Blood Ruth, as well as the Great War of Separation. We'll be discussing all that today. Again, appreciate y'all joining us. And today's, I guess, set of panelists. Of course, myself, I'm the founder and owner of Rippaverse Comics. Not important. I'm moving over, well, this way to Carol Brown, who is the executive assistant here, does a lot. I mean, pretty much everything, almost everything I do, she does as well.
I
Carol, how you
stalked
doing?
you. That's really what I do.
Accurate. Yeah. Pretty accurate. But how you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I dolled up because I heard there were going to be beautiful people here and I wanted to match in.
There you go. I respect that.
Yeah.
Of course, we are also joined by the writers of Blood Ruth, which we're going to be talking today. Jen and Sylvia Sauce. How y'all doing?
We're doing awesome. This is such a great idea. I'm so stoked that we can finally talk spoilers. I don't know if you know this about us, but we like spoiling shit.
Not inaccurate.
And Chad, I see all of you in here. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you tune in every Monday. And we're happy that you're here for the first one.
Yeah, hail all of you. Hail all of you.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all. By the way, thumbs it up, share it out, all the good stuff. Again, we'll be here for hour and a half, couple of hours talking everything Blood Ruth and the Great War of Separation. And I am joined by Brother Caden White, who is the art director here at the Rippaverse. You see a lot of his work on pretty much everything. Also, the artist for Saoirse. Caden, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Excited to be here. It's cool to be amongst the heavyweights, and usually people don't see me, so I'm
that's true.
I'm very incognito, but I'm grateful, man. I love this round table. Being the first episode, man, we're setting the pace, so it's pretty awesome. You guys are all amazing, and I'm just here.
Nah. We're gonna talk all stuff Caden as well here on the show, because he's done a lot of artwork for Blood Ruth, done a lot of artwork for some of the covers that we'll be discussing obviously today. So let me just I guess get us right into it. So we have, just to let you guys know, we do have several collections that are active. We of course have ISOM 3. We appreciate that hit over $500,000 in total sales, so appreciate all of y'all that have pre-ordered. Remember to take advantage of the Hero Stash if you have not already. That is our new little program that we have. You'll see it at checkout, and that you'll be able to, just as the name implies, stash away your items without having to pay for shipping, basically delaying your shipping as well. So it'll allow you to combine multiple orders before having them shipped, so you can save a little money on shipping. I know this is especially attractive to all of our international customers out there, because we know that shipping can be brutal for some of you guys. So now you can just stash a bunch of stuff, condense a bunch of orders, or consolidate them and then ship them all out. So be sure to take advantage of that.
We hit a benchmark, didn't we?
Oh, yes, we did hit a benchmark. Let me scroll down to that. I'm glad you brought that up. Of $500,000. We have our video team editing some stuff up. That'll be ready this week, maybe as early as tomorrow. We'll see. And you'll get to see some reveals for Yaira number 3, as far as some cover art, as well as Saoirse number 1. Really excited for that. So that was the first milestone that we hit, $500,000. So thank you all so much for that support. And we will be showing those off here this upcoming week. Now, we also have Zaylin by Chuck Dixon. and Joe Bennett. Marcos Martins on the colors. That is active as well. That hit its milestone not too long ago, 5,000 total books sold. So thanks all of you. And we also, of course, have The Great War of Separation by Chuck Dixon, as well as Jack Herbert. That just the end of last week, or the middle of last week, we just launched that. It's not even been a week yet. So thank you all for that. Closing in on 2,700 books sold. So we appreciate y'all. Go grab all those items. We got plenty of merchandise, all the cool things. Just grab them all, and we appreciate your continued support. But today we're talking all things Blood Ruth. We finally get to talk Blood Ruth #1. I'm really excited to talk about that, and I guess we'll open with kind of just the character. By the way, you can go check out our character page and see things like this. Where you can learn some more about Blood Ruth. We're updating these as well, so be sure to check those out. You can learn a little bit more about her, see some of the related comics that she shows up in, get some merchandise, all of the good things. Now, Blood Ruth was a character that debuted in ISOM #2.
Yep.
I created her alongside my man's Marcos Rios, who I believe is in the chat. Got to give a big shout out to him.
Hey, Marcos.
What's up, Marcos?
It was interesting because obviously she plays a pretty integral role. I guess also Gooding's first appearance as well. Pretty integral role in the plot in ISOM #2. As ISOM goes to her, you see her kind of castle as well upon the advice of Gooding, because they're trying to, obviously he's trying to help out Sam here, who is really gone missing, right? So we're dealing with some devilings that almost blew up his little house, or security room, office, if you want to call it that. And Sydney deals with those types. And I wanted to create a character that was specifically there to deal with that type of stuff. It also gave me a fun opportunity. If you pay attention to the dialogue in ISOM #2, there's some conversations being had among her and ISOM in which they discuss kind of how our world works, and that yes, there's different dimensions and stuff like that, but there's only one of those. There's no actual multiverse or anything of that nature. So I wanted to create this character that was specifically tasked with dealing with those types of issues, because while they do seemingly have some connection, devilings that ISOM fought to ISOM, it wasn't really like, that's not really just his thing, right? To be dealing with that type of stuff. I needed a character that can make sense of it all. And it was a fun character to create. I went to Marcos with, obviously, as I always do, how I envision that she looks. I wanted to give her a badass hat as well. And again, give a big shout out to my man's Marcos, because it was, again, he takes the lead on a lot of that stuff, because I have the artistic eye, but I'm obviously not an artist per se. That's why the joke of the Eric sketch is the joke of the Eric sketch.
We'll never know until we see the Eric sketch. Maybe just pop it up real quick.
Really quick. No one will even pay attention.
There's just 1,000 friends watching.
Yeah.
Of course.
You can do like a subliminal message.
Yeah, we can do that. But yeah, so it was he took a lot of what was in my mind, put it to character, right, and made it obviously something that we could present to people like Kanan and everybody else that was going to actively be depicting this character, which was awesome. So loved how she turned out. Didn't really know, as I didn't know with Gooding, what the audience feedback was going to be. People fell in love with the character, having those blood-like sort of related magic-based sort of powers there. And people are intrigued about her enough for us to justify giving her a book. And that book was, of course, written by the Saskas, which we'll be talking about. Before we get into that, a lot of people, you know that Kanan was one of the first artists to depict, obviously Cliff did it in the book, but some of the first art that you guys got to see came from Kanan as well, in addition to some of the covers for Blood Ruth as well. But this is one of the posters, the first posters that we released of Blood Ruth. Kanan, I think it's the first time that I've even shared some of this line art, by the way.
Yeah.
For everybody. What was going through your mind as you were creating this character here, or not creating the character, but doing one of the first adaptations of her, and it just came out to this lovely, lovely poster, which you see in the background of a lot of my videos.
It's weird because I'm looking at her now, and it's like, yeah, I think I've said it about some other character that I've drawn before. Like, this is drawing her kind of cold turkey.
Yeah,
I really didn't know about the character much, so really my thinking behind it was just kind of making sure I put all the best and like key elements and really sticking close to the concept art. Didn't really try to deviate too much. I ad-libbed up on a couple of things, but for the most part, even to her castle in the background, like really making sure I just kind of captured the dynamicism of the character. Like I said, I didn't know too much about Sydney's. I don't think I even knew the character's like name.
I mean, I was like, just hey,
have at
it.
It was really dry, but I look at it, I'm like, man, I would change that.
Of course, that's how it always goes.
I was like, the way I drew her here, she looks tall because as an artist, one of the ways to make characters tall, you make their head smaller. That gives them like size and stuff like that. So I was like, I definitely would make her a little bit different. And honestly, the way Michael, he's the artist of Blood Ruth. He's kind of established kind of like the blueprint of how she's gonna look. And so now his art is actually what I reference whenever I draw her, because he nailed it. Like, that's Sydney. But early on, it was just kind of like, kind of doing what I do, make sure the tones and the aspects of her outfit came out, make the leather look like leather, and her hair, definitely want to capture the hair, man. Got the hair.
That's
and
key.
Then and then I kind of like, I won't say fell in love with the character, but she's definitely one of the ones that I kind of like gravitated toward kind of right away, being a person, person of color.
Got a little darker shade to us. I know.
I got girls, what I'm saying? So, and my kids seen her and, they liked her and, and all that stuff. So, but yeah, man, I love the character. I love, more than anything, I think the paranormal aspect that Blood Ruth brings. And I am a person, I listen to a lot of creepypastas. If anybody knows what those are.
I love them.
Mega fan. Got just about all types of podcasts of creepypasta stuff, and she's riding along the lines of that. So I'm grateful to be able to be the first to kind of like really articulate, other than Marcos, but taking Marcos's designs. And I always tell Marcos, like, man, you realize, dude, like when you see this stuff, I was like, that's you, bro. Like you help bring her to reality, and you're seeing it manifest over and over. And every time somebody draws it, you see different iterations and little tweaks here and there, but the core base design is always there, and you're credited for that. But so that's my thinking, man. I was just trying to make sure I really did it right. It was like my first like major kind of gig with the Rippaverse before actually being on staff, and so I wanted to make sure I captured it and leave a good impression so I could get hired again.
Obviously you did. Obviously it worked out pretty well. I'd at least like to think that it did. And again, you just did such a wonderful job. And again, being that kind of first visual, as you guys see, the color poster is behind me back there, that people saw of the character. And I just loved it. I love the little detail. Obviously I love your work in general, Kaden, but man, it was cool to finally see that and see the colors put on it. And then we got to see her in action. Big shout out to Cliff in ISOM number 2. Now, you also did, and I'll move to that just really quick. Obviously, you did cover A.
Right.
Let me do this real quick. Bam. You did cover A for Blood Ruth number 1. Obviously, in this cover, you're kind of taking some of those other elements. You got Shadow Wolves as well. Some of the family members in the background. What was the approach here, knowing that, I mean, it is cover A, though cover D is the mass print. A lot of people consider cover A the main cover, whatever you want to consider the main cover. That's up to you. Don't really, I don't care, honestly. But obviously, this is a cover that a lot of people had gravitated towards. So, what was your thinking there?
Making it more of a, well, one, I understood the character more because if you look at her, she looks different.
Yeah,
she's definitely more along the lines of what you see in the book. You know, with my little additives and little twists to it, but almost like a gothic kind of vibe, almost like one of those old school kind of like gothic churches, you know, which is why you got the real intricate design going around it. Kind of, I like framing like using framing devices for a lot of stuff, and so there's a lot going on, and like there's like demon horns, and you know, you got all these little things, but I like to add that little stuff where like you look at it and like, oh, there's this. Oh man, that's that. But really just kind of wanted to give it kind of that cinematic feel, but at the same time, like I said, that classic gothic kind of horror element, alluding to, you know, the two individuals on either side of her. You know, at the time, nobody really knew who they were. So it's just kind of like, you know, little Easter eggs. And then of course our wolves, man. You gotta put the wolves and then also Othello, you know, the dragon. That those are her companions, man, and I really like those wolves. I wish they could morph into like actually werewolves. That'd be crazy. Shadow werewolves.
What a great idea, Ken.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, look, Kanan dropping some ideas.
Keep them coming, Kanan. Keep them coming. What else do you think the wolves should do?
But yeah, so yeah, no, like I said, really, like I said, kind of trying to capture the, you know, kind of. I always like to, at least in some of the covers, allude to a little bit of what's going on inside of it without kind of telling the whole story. I always feel like, you know, when you're creating an image, you should be able to summarize everything in one image. And I'm a real fan of like collages. I don't know if you've noticed. You know, with a lot of the pictures and posters that I do, it's kind of that movie feel. You know, I always think of Iron Man. You know, when it first came out, you know, you had Downey Jr. in the top, and then you had, you know, all these different things, and I like that vibe. So yeah, you know, just kind of trying to bring all the elements together, man, and make it work. So
yeah, and like I said, I love the way that this turned out. I love the implementation of obviously the wolves. Those were a little, because no, I'm giving her this castle or whatever when I was first creating it. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have her in this big castle, but I want her to have some cool companions. And also, you know, I was trying to justify, like, obviously she's jumping between these different, like, you know, dimensions and doing all these different things, right? And so I'm like, I got to sort of have a way, the audience's first introduction to her, have a way that she has something to show, right, for all of those things that she's jumping between, right? And so that was my way of giving her obviously dragon, giving her the shadow wolves and the crow, and obviously all that, because they're doing like these kind of, well, crows are interesting animals in general, right? Like they're a very smart bird, right? Just in general, right? But you do have you do have like of course the obviously shadow wolves. They have more of this supernatural kind of element to her. Now the here's a little Easter egg. Obviously the which I love writing a scene that I saw too, where Isom slams the gator. The gators don't have any powers, right? I just wanted to throw those in there because I'm like, she has this moat thing going on, right? And I was like, what if I threw some gators in there? Because look, this is a place where she's like, this is out in the middle of in the mountains, right? Texas, and you know, not everybody knows this even exists, right? This is over there, so I need to trick this out. So I got the crocs or the gators in the moat or whatever. And Isom falls into it or whatever. That was a fun thing. But those aren't really her. She just threw those there. Maybe those are for a story for later. But I do want to get into, obviously, we got to let the Saskia speak because we want to talk everything Blood Ruth #1. Now, obviously,
the #1 boss, just in case we jumped into like Blood Ruth 8 or something.
Yeah, right.
Future, right?
Make sure I set the scene there, okay? But no, but seriously, you all had you had the chance to I pitched the idea, obviously, to you guys of writing it, and to me, it was a hand in glove fit, considering, some of the elements that she mixes the fantastical sort of gothic element as well as obviously some of the horror stuff, and this being our first horror book. I would love to know from you guys' perspective what obviously attracted you to the character and why you wanted to take on that project.
Well, we already felt spoiled with Yaira. Like before you even approached us, I remember Yaira being introduced with ISOM 1, and we were like, man, I'd really like to write that chick. She's so cool.
Yeah.
And then Fates would have it. And then we'll look at ISOM 2 and we're like, who is this Sydney Bloodruth? Because you don't expect it, right? Because
Right, yeah.
ISOM is like the Undertaker. He's just putting guys over left, right, and center. You're like, what's ISOM doing? He's like, he's introducing the whole freaking world, you know? And that's why ISOM 3 is WrestleMania. If all of you guys haven't pre-ordered it yet, that's where shit gets super real. And as soon as we saw Sydney, we're like, oh, she's a horror chick. I would be so into writing her. And then even on Twitter, people were like, are you guys going to be able to do that? I was like, oh, if the boss decrees it, yeah. And it was so because you did. And
I felt spoiled. We already had Yaira. I didn't want to ask too much.
Yeah, you don't want to be
I'm
greedy.
just happy to be here. And I'm like, oh, well, she's pretty amazing. I thought she was so cool from the moment we saw her.
Yeah.
Castle, dragon, wolves. That leather outfit, oh my god, that's so hot, and it's so iconic as well. And we probably talked that we almost did a big story for Zatanna a while back. And we did. I mean, we're horror directors, so we love the occult and we love all of that stuff. And we had such big plans that were not met. And we had like, I always really wanted to do like a magic user witch type character.
And we're also huge like Buffy and Blade fans. We're always wanting to have a character like that. But if you don't get the opportunity, you just have all these great ideas that are just kind of like mulling around in your mind. But the cool thing with Blood Ruth is you set her up so good. Like the castle, the everything. She like, you got these hellions going around with the devil in. She's already like, that's a cool thing about storytelling too. You want to get there late and leave early. So I felt like we were already getting in like, oh man, she feels like she's already been having this huge adventure for her to be so well versed in what was going on.
I feel I could write her for like 100 years and then my ghost could come back and continue writing her. Going with all the occult influences, all the horror influences, and also influences from stuff like Buffy and Blade, particularly Buffy, because I feel that I got to grow up in kind of a golden age where you had a hero who was deeply flawed. And it was like wrestling. Half the episode, she'd be getting her ass kicked. Yeah. And then in the very last 10 minutes, Buffy would pull it out and you'd be like, oh, she won. Yeah. And there has been a big void since Buffy's been gone. And Blood Ruth, I would say, is better than Buffy. It's going to be better than the remake of Buffy. Guys, don't get excited about that remake. They told you it was going to be Buffy and the cast is coming back. And now they're like, and there's a new Slayer. And you guys,
I just wanted to see Sarah Michelle Gellar's 40-year-old Buffy doing Buffy. The old Scooby game.
Yeah, if you love Buffy, don't worry. You have Blood Ruth. You have everything that Buffy should be right now in Blood Ruth right now. And I just love her. She's such a good character too.
Moralistically, that's the difference between Yaira. And don't tell Yaira I said she wasn't moral. In her own way, she's moral.
Well, if someone told me I want to be more like Blood Ruth, I'm like, yeah, me too. And if someone said I want to be more like Yaira, I'm like, dude, no, you can't go around being more like Yaira.
She's a murderer.
Yaira is a power fantasy.
Yeah, it's understood.
It's all about family and stuff that matters, family and faith, and those are two things really important to us as well. Like you too, boss.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
We sat down. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you get ISOM 3, it's going to get spoiled for you in the story and the way it's supposed to. But you explained how the lore of the Rippaverse worked, and we were like, because we're big nerds, I never heard anybody take on superpowers like that, and I was like, oh wow, that's really smart. What if we took from that and weaved it into Blood Ruth. And yet, guys, go in the chat, put in your theories, because I've seen a few of you get so darn close, and I think 2 people actually guessed it, and I just gave you guys the eyeballs, like, oh, that's an interesting idea.
There's one guy on Twitter. I don't know if you're in the chat wherever the chat is
Wherever
right now,
it is.
but you looked at the covers and you guessed half of like all of Blood Ruth, and I was like, just hold on to this tweet later. I can't say anything, but you're like,
Crack
that
the code.
is so and so, and I was like, oh, dude,
Get out of my mind.
Are you Matlock? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, when you do a premiere story for somebody, you want to set the foundation so that no matter what happens, even if, Jen and I got smoked by a car and somebody has to pick up the Blood Ruth comics, there's something really rich that you can build more future stories off of. So we wanted to say where she was, what happened to her directly before she came there, what's the internal struggle of the hero,
what her motivations are, because that's very much what a hero is.
and what is thrusting her forward. And
nice word usage.
Thank you. Am I allowed to talk about the events in Blood Ruth 1?
Yes, of course.
Sick. Okay, so
Spoiler, there's no Andrew. You're free.
Yeah, he's like, Andrew had an opportunity to be here anyway. He decided not to be here, so whatever happens now.
No, it would have broken his heart. He would have been like, "There's so many NDAs, I can't stand it." He would have started having a seizure.
That guy couldn't be here. I'll let Andrew out of the basement when this is over. I promise. But he decided very comfortably.
what we liked is that Gooding recommended Blood Ruth to ISOM, and ISOM too, and we thought, ooh, but why would somebody like Gooding need help from someone like Blood Ruth? Because he's so super capable. He's got his robots and everything like that. So Gooding actually knows the Blood Ruth family, and he was hired by Lillian and Michael to clean out the castle. And as soon as he went in there, he's like, oh shoot, literally nothing I have works in here. Like in haunted houses, usually technology doesn't work. So we thought we were going to play with that. And so as soon as Blood Ruth gets to town, Gooding's like, oh great, the Blood Ruths have shown up. It's just the daughter for some reason. And because he knows who she is, Sydney's like, oh, we got to fight.
I love making them fight. There's nothing I love more than 2 good guys that fight for a misunderstanding type reason.
It's such an Avengers moment,
because Gooding's like, I don't want to hurt you. Why are you? I'm like, it's okay. I know that the Blood Ruths, you fight demons. I understand you're an on edge people.
Well, Sydney's been through some shit. She just fought the first vampire. Mom's gone. She's a vampire. Brother's a demon. Other brother's dead. And dad is so mad at her.
Somewhere Andrew is just having 12 heart attacks.
You're telling it all.
Well, that's why we're having the stream. So.
Yeah. And so, when you've gone through so much trauma, if somebody comes over and they're like, hey, Sydney, Blood Ruth, she's probably like, were you sent by him? And then it turns out, no, he wasn't sent by him. He was like, can I hire you for a gig? And she's all like, I guess so. Because she senses the evil. As soon as she goes in there, she's like, what is this? And then this guy shows up and he's like, here. And so we go into Michael and Lillian, who, since Jennifer and I are for the very first time writing separately, I'm writing Michael and Jen's writing Lillian. I feel like we're
enemies. We were asked very nicely to be here together.
Yeah. And this is only because the boss asked
us. I told Eric you got 2 hours and then I can't see her anymore.
But it was really nice to be able to build the foundation of Michael and Lillian, because you keep seeing them. You saw them in Alpha Core, you saw them in ISOM. They seem to be like a crock pot. They're cooking something, but it's not ready yet, and you're not quite sure what it is, but they keep popping up.
Spoiler alert, guys. By the time we put Michael and Lillian in here, we'd already been given an okay to do Michael and Lillian books.
Yeah. So
this was us kind of being like, are you guys going to catch on that we really, really love these 2 characters?
Yeah. I love their dynamic. They're like a really evil Team Rocket.
Yeah. I like that. I like that comparison. I like the comparison. Well, I gotta ask Carol, because I know she's into this type of stuff, and obviously we had she's been there from the jump. I mean, for you guys that don't know, Carol's been here since really from day one.
I stalk everything Eric does.
Yes. You obviously got the book initially, like well, let's start with ISOM 2, right? You first got introduced to the character. And again, you're very much a part of the editorial process, obviously. How were you feeling about like where we were going to go with him? Obviously, we had just handed him off to the Saskas, and shout out to Michael Montana. He had a tall order to adapt this whole entire story. And he nailed it. Big shout out to obviously Kanan, helping him out along the way. But yeah, it came out just almost exactly how I'd envisioned it, but it was a story like a lot of the stories we tell here. It's a story that only Jen and Sylvia could have told. But how did you feel about seeing the initial, like to where we're at now, to you saw the character before everybody else saw it as well? Like, how did you feel about Sydney Bloodruth?
Well, I remember when you sent me the script like way back, and I looked at it, and like Sydney like immediately popped off the page for me. And I don't think you remember because you were like juggling like a million things, like you were inventing shipping and fulfillment and
inventor of all the
things.
You
were doing these things. But I had sent you a screenshot when her first line. And I was like, "This is it. This is the lady, right?" And so when I saw the fans asking for more, folks to like write her and stuff like that, I was like, "Man, if he does not get like the best writers for this person, I'm going to make them disappear so hard people are going to think they made them up," right? Yeah. But then you announced that the Saskas were going to do it, and I was like, "This is acceptable," right? And then when we were going through the artists, I was like, "Man, if we don't find a good artist, I'm going to make those artists disappear so hard too." But then Michael showed up, and I was like, "This is acceptable as well. This is good." But I really like. The journey of going with Sydney has been absolutely amazing. And like I don't think I told you, Kanan, but like I didn't know who Sydney like fully was until like I had to roll all of her posters. So I spent a lot of time looking at your artwork and like getting to know her intimately that way before I read the book, right? And that's before we had like the current setup. So I was like coming in to like help with all the stuff.
Yeah, and whatnot. she was in that. Yep, that's true.
Yeah, but this book is beautiful. It's beautiful in like so many different ways.
Yep.
The story is fantastic. I love the biblical ties. It all comes in like a great circle at the end. And you really like, I think what I really love about this the most when it comes to story stuff is actually the stuff that's tied to family, because for some reason, in modern storytelling, we're all about like anti-family, right? We're all orphans or parents ditched me or something like this. And like Sydney's family is like very present in this in various different ways. And I thought that was just amazing. And, there's some cute guys in here, too. So that works for me, too.
Of course, she loves that.
Yeah. Is that a hottie? Oh,
of course.
Of course, she loves that.
It's true. Every time we have Marcos design it, we're like, sexy, hot. He's a demon, but super handsome.
I'm sorry, not sorry, Marcos.
I know he loves it. Well, actually, I guess we can kind of, let's start there. This is what I'm going to do, because I do love that how this starts, and I really want you to give your perspective on this. I'm gonna bounce this real quick and share this with the audience right here. So, what was the influence? Let me actually remove that, and there we go. There we go. Cool. All right. So
good.
I love the biblical ties. Obviously, all of us here, right? We're men and women of Christ, and I love that was the route you chose to kind of just start, right? This classic story that everybody knows, Cain and Abel. What was your idea? What was your line of thinking there? And by the way, I love how Michael adapted this this entire scene here. But what made you want to start from that point? I mean, you're letting the audience know, like, sort of the biblical, obviously, ties to, because I believe we showed this off for the yes, we did. We showed some of this off for the preview pages, as well. So the audience knew pretty early on that this, even though there was no text, they knew exactly what this was in reference to. Jen and Sylvia, what was your idea starting there with Blood Ruth?
Well, for one, I feel that Catholic and Christian representations in the media suck. They very, very rarely is it something that you're like, oh my God, did you see this Bible passage in this comic? It's so cool.
It's been a long time since Nightcrawler found his faith in 90s X-Men,
or Wolverine started to pray. Those were big moments. And my boy Daredevil,
of course.
you know, those characters, you know, there wasn't a lot of representation. And nowadays when you see it, it's almost like, I don't know if y'all seen the movie Heretic, but it basically is like, you have faith in something, ha, loser.
Yeah.
I wanted to go the other direction because I think faith is beautiful. And I think faith is very closely tied to hope.
Yeah.
And in the Bible, there's a lot of blood stuff, but there is nothing more powerful than the first murder and blood that spoke to God about the first murder. So obviously came to mind. Michael did a phenomenal job as well, because you know,
he should just do the whole Bible.
Yeah,
Right.
that would be cool. That would seriously be really cool.
I have an idea.
Yeah, exactly. That would be really cool.
Bible. Get the kids to read it.
Yeah,
I have an idea for one.
I love it. I love
But
it.
it was, I think these were the first pages we even saw Michael Montané do, which was kind of like a brain explosion, because we saw he was the fan art contest winner, and we're like, whoa, this guy's good. And then we saw this and it was like, holy smokes, this guy's really freaking good. It looks like real people, and the epicness. And it's amazing because it's something it's a story all of us know.
Yes.
People who don't know the Bible know this story. And it was kind of cool to put it into Blood Ruth's world, because without saying any spoilers, this is a huge part of who she is.
Right.
And they believe that they're descendants, which would mean that there are parts of this where they feel like they're cursed. And that you see that in the very first monologue that you have with Blood Ruth. She's talking about being cursed. And obviously what just happened to her family, she feels very cursed. And even when she's fighting Morningstar at the very end of the book, he starts teasing her about that, being like, yeah, what did God make you for? Just to suffer? And she's really smart, because she knows demons want to take your faith away. And she plays into it like, in my mind, she Princess Jasmine's him, like, oh yeah, Jafar, your beard is all whatever. And then she's like, yeah, the Virgin Mary's prayer, which is something we took from exorcisms, because priests have said that the devil, out of everybody, he hates the Virgin Mary the most, because she was so meek and so kind, and she was human, and she chose her faith, she chose her life, she chose everything like that. And I thought, ooh, that would be such a cool moment. And I think some people even missed it, that when she's talking to Abel, when she passes out and loses all her blood and sees her brother, and he's talking about how important the prayer of the Hail Mary is. And I think, just like Jen was saying, that people don't celebrate religion. People don't pray. People forget about prayer altogether. They act like it's not important when it really is. Like,
absolutely is.
Or they treat it like marching orders to God. Like, God, I need you to do this thing for me. It's like, it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be back and forth conversation with the Father, and being kind of like, I'm so happy that I'm alive and get to experience this world that you made for me. But instead, it's like, hey, I really need to pass my test. Or I'm like,
exactly.
Or the times that we're grateful, that nothing's going bad, and we're like, God, thank you so much for even the gift of life. I always say that if people can't believe in God or faith or miracles by looking at the world around them, nothing will convince them that there's anything more powerful, because the fact that we even exist is a miracle in itself, that we can experience this. And I will say, if you guys want to do a deep dive, there is an amazing audio file floating around on the internet. I'll see if I can find it and post it on social later, where a priest is exorcising a demon, and he's talking to it, and it's saying how much it hates Mary. This demon claimed to be the devil, so it had, big aspirations.
Big ego.
Yeah, they all have a lot of ego, but he was saying how it's the Virgin Mary's prayer and the rosary offend him so much, because as he's the most prideful creation, all of God's creation, she's the most humble. Yeah. She is the absolute opposite of him, and she's mortal. Where does she get off being so good and she's mortal? But that's the Immaculate Conception.
Yeah.
Amen. So yeah, again, love where you had you start from here. First thing that the audience sees when they open up this lovely book by Michael, which again you can still get in the store. We also have a black and white version of the book as well, but it's the first thing that people see, and I just love everything. I love everything about it because again, it really sets the tone for the biblical ties to a character like obviously with Blood Ruth. Now, I do, before we move too far along, like in the actual story, you all, obviously you brought in Gooding, which was great. I love that, the idea, and I want to be just transparent here to the rest of the audience here. It was not my idea to start where they started, right? That to give the Saskas credit for that, because they think, okay, we need to give more context. Gooding told Isom, obviously, to go see Blood Ruth. We got to make sense of that, right? We have to make sense of that whole exchange. And so you use the first book to kind of set the tone there. And I absolutely love everything about it. But what were you thinking in including, obviously, not Gooding, but as you see here, we have two characters that you all will be writing separately as well, in Michael and Lillian. What was the thought process to include them?
Well, they came to town. They're looking at Club Merc. They're obviously into real estate. I think all the fans already know they're not going to get the castle because she's hanging out in an Isom too. And we wanted to set it up where you're like, it's really fun when bad guys don't get away with something they definitely think they're gonna get away with. And it's funny because you kind of see a little foreshadowing in this scene where he takes the contract that Sydney makes up and he signs it right away, and Lillian's like, that better have been the fairest contract I've ever seen. He's like, the fairest in the land, because he's just so arrogant. He thinks he's going to be totally fine in this situation. And you kind of see that they play things differently. Like Sydney is reading Michael. She sees completely through him. Sydney tries to look at Lillian. Lillian's eyes are just looking back at her. They both are such polar opposites of characters of how they play things. And they make for very interesting villains. And they're also, who would want a castle that has a doorway to hell? Who would want a castle filled with demons? What kind of a person would be like, oh, we got to set up shop there? And Michael and Lillian are definitely those kind of people.
Yeah, they're such great villains that you created, boss.
Yeah.
It was so exciting to continue to build up their lore.
Yeah.
No spoilers for Lillian, but she does feel she deserves the best things in life. And being a princess, a castle just goes hand in hand. I will say that the page where Gooding comes in and says, I got good news, bad news, and worse news for you. That might be my favorite thing I've ever written in my whole life. I love it so much that Gooding has that funny ass joke at the end. And it's like, oh, damages, that must be the bad news. And he's like, no. Very minimal damages. The bad news is she's taking the castle and everything. I also love that Michael and Lillian work together, as you could see in Alpha Core, but they're not even fucking talking to each other half the time. And he is very much like, I don't care who knows what I'm doing. I'm going to do it out in the open. I'm going to be very brass, very loud, very in control, very in charge. And with Japanese culture, also, Lillian is very demure. She doesn't like people knowing that what her business or what she's doing. She likes to work more in the shadows. She's more of a Machiavellian princess that she takes by manipulation, not by force. Michael is all force.
Yeah, well, you get that if you guys have picked up the document cards, you look at it and it says Michael's a fighter. Well, I haven't seen him lift a finger yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of fun to do a flashback where you see he's killing all these people and all this money's flying down, and you're like, oh wow, so there's a pile of bodies he built his empire on. That's kind of cool. Might be the reason he had to leave town and show up in Floorspark.
Yeah, and when they first appeared, they were talking about acquiring properties, and I wanted to continue that theme without giving anything else away about them, but it was very important that this was a good piece of real estate that they failed to acquire. Yeah. And also, Sydney needs some bad guys that are in this realm, not just on the other side. Yep. And Lillian and Michael are certainly not going to be happy.
Not at all. Not at all. And yeah, which I guess kind of moves me to the next point. Let me pull up the next deal here, because again, credit to you, because this was not my idea. You decide to make her family really an integral part of this story, right? I love that, by the way. Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic idea in the way that it played out.
We wrote it just to impress you, boss. I dare that you, yeah.
Well, we've continued tradition since Black Widow because we were still writing our Black Widow when you first started reviewing, and we're like, we got to impress this guy every time.
But no, I love it. Obviously, we have a family portrait here in the cover by Michael himself, who was the interior artist for it. I love this scene right here where you get to see this portrait as well. And I guess if you could kind of speak to their inclusion as well as their creation, right? Because they are kind of ancillary to, like, just as a character, Blood Ruth, and adding more to her just by them existing. We know the father's kind of pissed off, but just go into all of that, the creation of just the family in the Blood Ruth.
Well, if you're going to be a Hellion hunter, how does that exactly happen? Were you chosen like a slayer, like a watcher just shows up and tells you? Or is it something you inherit as part of the family? And we chose to make Sydney the youngest of the family. She's got an older brother, Abel, who obviously he took the job very seriously. He totally thought he was going to be the one. The middle child, Casey, was kind of like, well, if Abel exists, what am I supposed to do, right? And then you have the parents that would be the ones that have been holding the torch of being these Hellion hunters for so long. And you even see the grandparents on the wall. So you have to believe that they've been doing this for years. How's the dog?
The dog is okay. She scratches when she wants attention, and I don't know if y'all were hearing that.
Yeah, we heard a little bit.
She's a big ass dog.
I was gonna say it was Andrew asking to come out.
No, the dog is quiet now.
But Jen and I were not only children. We're born collaborators. I'm always with my sister. My parents are extremely important to me. My grandparents were extremely important to me.
I think it's because we're European as well. Yeah. Family is just a little bit more like
right.
I mean, a lot of European families, you don't even move out until you're married. You just stay with the family.
Yeah,
and I know that there's a lot of media and culture that is like, oh, stop talking to your parents, go out on your own, and just never see them again except for you. Oh no, Andrew's here.
Yeah, I see him in the chat.
Go back to your cage.
Hi, Andrew.
We didn't say a single spoiler at all. Not even one.
But yeah,
the chat.
Family is so important. We also wanted to have a way that the powers are very uniquely transferred, because there is the family of bloodline, and then through marriage, there's also something that happens that allows the powers to transfer as well.
And they get to also hunt Hellions.
Yeah.
That would probably be something fun to explore in Bloodruth too.
Perhaps.
I don't know.
Potentially.
We also wanted to set up her world that you got the castle, and it's filled with so much stuff that endlessly there could be adventures just inside there. Then you go into the demon stuff, endlessly demons from there. But the family relationship, it grounds it in reality. And it's also something that each family member is different. Abel was like the golden child. Abel was very, very capable. And if you know anything about developmental psychology and where you fall in the family, depending on how you are, families, generally speaking, very hard on the firstborn. So the firstborn kind of almost turns out perfect. Mm-hmm. And if the firstborn is perfect, then the secondborn, especially if they become a middle child, they kind of struggle to get to the same thing, because the parents have already done so much with the firstborn that even if they love the secondborn just as much, which they usually do, the secondborn feels like they don't have as much attention as they need. And in this case, Casey is like, I'm never going to live up to Abel. I'm never going to be as good as Abel. So whatever, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And then Sydney, has this perfect brother and this like whatever brother. And they're both kind of like the angel and the devil on her shoulder. And Abel guiding her to be like a great Bloodruth, a great Hellion hunter, and take their family's sacred duty seriously. And then Casey, who kind of is more encouraging to be like, you don't need to do anything. We got Abel and we got mom and dad. Like, what do you want? We got to do other stuff.
And she certainly was never expecting anything to happen to their family. Like, especially you get that flashback and she's like, he's not my first devil. And you flash back to what happened with Silk, and she says that was the day everything stopped being fun. And you kind of imagine how cool it would be to go with your family and you're all like Blade and Buffy and you're all badasses and you're like, it's a vampire, let's kill it, woo, let's go get burgers after. Like, it feels like it must have been so fun until the day it's not fun and you find something you can't beat. And now all of a sudden, not only is Sydney thrust into the role of being the most responsible and being the sole surviving Blood Ruth that's still in action, she has so much on her shoulders of what could I have done differently? Yeah. What can I do right now? In the first scene, you see her fighting vampires, and boom, who shows up? Her mom, the last vampire she wants to see in any situation.
Right.
You see her breaking through the church to get away from her, and then there's still the stained glass of the Virgin Mother, and it's a lot of everything reminds her that she doesn't have her mom anymore. She doesn't have her brothers, and her connection with her father isn't there. So you want to give your hero stuff that's working against them internally, so she isn't just going out and kicking butt all the time. You see that there's this internal struggle that she's trying to find her footing, and it's about growing up, which I guess kind of is the most relatable part of Blood Ruth, because we all get that part where it's like, oh, I guess I'm the adult in the family now.
Right.
Oh, I have these responsibilities. I can't just lean on mom and dad or my brother.
Yeah, it's unique for her because she is the only, or for the first time, all by herself. She doesn't have her family to rely on. She has her dad, but he's decided he's not going to be very reliable for the time being because he's going his own trauma.
Right.
And not to give everything back to Buffy, but Buffy season 1, when she gets killed by the vampire, the master, it's all of a sudden it's like, oh, you can die? I didn't know that people could die, because up until now I have superpowers and I didn't know things could go that bad so quickly, especially to her entire family. Yeah. So it's also nice to see that Sydney wants to do something that by all means is impossible. She wants to save her family, and one of them's dead, one of them's a vampire, one of them is possessed, and one of them just like, fuck it. Her dad's just over it. He's just not going to do anything anymore.
Yeah, and at one point she's going to fight Silk. You just don't know when, because it went so bad before.
Right. Yeah, again, absolutely love the inclusion of them. It was awesome to see some of the flashbacks, and we get to know why they're kind of in the state that they're in. Obviously, as the acting Blood Ruth, really the sole surviving one, at least in the capacity that she was once before, is Sydney, right? And so that's a tall order when you see your family kind of going through all of that. I mean, and for her to keep trucking, it's a very inspirational character there, and then it really also brings her kind of down to earth, right? Despite her having these sort of cool powers, she's gone through even before she gets into some of the stuff that we see her obviously going through in the experience as far as new this castle. She's gone through a lot already, and it was really cool to kind of again see some of that stuff play out. I do want to talk about kind of some of the art. Obviously, at Kanan, you leading the charge there and being one of the main art editors there. What was it like working with Michael, right? Fan art contest winner. So instead, we've had a lot of these veterans, people have been around, the Cliffs and the Joes, right? Been around for 20 years plus, doing things, especially with the major publishers. Right. So now we have someone who's extremely talented, right? Almost an undiscovered talent, in the fact that he had done the, he won the fan art contest, so he had this great opportunity. And then I don't want to say we set him up for failure. We set him up for success, I'd argue, because this book turned out to be excellent. But, it's a big book, right? You go in, you win a fan art contest, and now you're writing this book that a lot of people have high expectations for. And I think he absolutely nailed it. But what was it like kind of obviously working with him? I know with any artist that we work with, everybody has their you edit them in a different way. You kind of meet them where they're at. What was it like working with Michael?
Well, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. That's one thing when coming in, of course, I started with coming in with Yaira. You had to learn, and as a editor, editor, comes from kind of like my teaching background. I taught a college course probably for like say a semester about several years ago. But one thing I did when I came in is, and this is going somewhere, trust me. But I had a syllabus. I brought it home. I was like, first of all, I don't understand this. It's boring to me, so it's probably gonna be boring to them. So I tossed it. And so what I did the following day is I took a hat and I said, everybody write down what you want to learn. And so everybody wrote down what they wanted to learn. And then from there, we built the curriculum based on their interests. And
Wow.
I think
That's
every
awesome.
teacher should do that.
Yeah, I love that.
They thrived. You had people that, for lack of a better term, struggled putting two lines together, and by the end they were drawing Spider-Man swinging through the city. So it was one of those things where you meet people where they are, like you said, Eric. And so with Michael, it wasn't really much I had to do, as opposed to just make sure certain things were refined. And I know with this style is as being a person that uses a lot of shadows and hatch marks and things like that. He doesn't really use many hatch marks, but he uses a lot of shadow work. You have to know where to put it comprehensively, because sometimes is in regard to what I do, sometimes you render, I'm a 90s kid, so I grew up during the the heyday image days. So, the Rob Liefelds and Jim Lees and all those guys. And so drawing the hatch marks and all that stuff is like, you go crazy with it. But as an artist, you have to know the balance. You have to let the line breathe. And what he does really well really is like capturing like the likenesses and creating, like, that's something I still strive to do as an artist, make people look real that aren't even real. And
right,
like
he does that really well.
He does it amazing. And like I said, Blood Ruth is the antithesis of how she should look like. So she's kind of the benchmark. And so with him, it was just making sure he like I said, let certain things breathe, scale back on certain things. Sometimes you don't need a lot of shadow. Sometimes you just need to let it be open and let the colors shine through. Other times you need to establish depth and weight to the image. And so as we went along, he learned kind of the balance between the two. Because,
right.
I'm like him, man. Like, sometimes you want to add detail and you want to render everything, but for time's sake, sometimes you don't need to render the background. Just let it breathe, because there's so much going on already. And that's a rule of thumb for any artists out there. When you're drawing something, if you have a detailed style, if the thing in the foreground is going to be detailed, then there should be next to nothing in the background. Otherwise, it looks chaotic, and it's hard to kind of let, because just like, for example, a person a works out, you have what they call muscle confusion. So yes, Carol. So there's always a push pull. Your biceps naturally do that. If you're flexing on your bicep, then your tricep is relaxed, vice versa. And so your eyes are a muscle. And so if you always are hit with so many different things, your eye doesn't get a chance to rest. And all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I can't even look at this anymore, because there's so much going on. Now there's a way to do that, to have a whole bunch going on, but still let the lines breathe. And you do that through line weights, and you do that through scaling back on certain things. Like for me, I have a really detailed style. So if my characters are detailed, my backgrounds would just be line art, if at all, anything. And so that allows like the artist to, or the reader to, like really tell what's going on. So with Michael, like I said, I really didn't have to do much. He's kind of one of those dark horses, man, that just had it.
Yeah.
And like I remember the piece that he won for the competition was Northrika. And I was
Northcote,
like, dang, man, who did this? I thought he was an established guy at the time, and I'm sure he's done some stuff, but this was, as far as I know, like his first major
it was
thing, man. And he kicked butt. And so I was just like, I would know I was supposed to be being the editor, but I'm taking mental notes. I do that with a lot of our artists, man.
Yeah,
because I'm like, okay, I can add that to my style. Oh yeah, I can do that like that. So, but he's amazing. He's teachable. That's huge,
right?
Huge. He's teachable. He learns. He listens. He asks questions. Some people are like, yeah, I got it, man. I don't need it. I don't need help. I'm good. No, he asks questions, and he's receptive to criticism, and it shows. That's why Blood Ruth was received so well.
It was it was a lot of people loved it, like as their favorite book. I mean, art wise, so it that says a lot, right? And I mean, God is a fan. It's almost like you fell in our lap, right? Being a fan art contest winner, it's almost surreal, kind of that it happened the way that it did. But man, I'm happy that he's here, and I love how like you talk about it, like every artist, you got these definitive kind of versions of these characters, right?
Yeah.
Where, you see her the most obviously in her own book. Of course, you see her in ISOM, but you see her like she's the primary focus on her book. So it has a natural way of becoming the definitive version of the character, right? And now when I see her, and I'm pretty sure you're the same way, especially as an artist, you're thinking of that face that Michael kind of had come up with, and that's really cool. It's really cool to see. And again, the fact that the guy just kind of fell in our lap like he did, man, is kind of surreal. I want to get to, before we go into more of some of the story stuff, I want to I hadn't had a chance to show, I probably should have showed her before everything popped off, but let's just really quick, because I love Chloe to death. She is awesome.
Oh yeah.
She is amazing. And I just, now you want to talk about definitive like versions of the character. I cannot hear anybody else other than her voicing Blood Ruth. So let's watch the trailer for a lot of you that may have not seen it. And it's been a while since I've had a chance to look at this in context as well. Let's check it out.
God put a mark on the damned that would let others know they are not to be killed. Anyone who harmed the damned would be punished 7 times over. The damned were hidden from God's presence and forced to live out their lives carrying out the punishment of their cursed bloodline. The sin pumped through the veins of one descendant to the next. All bore the same mark. I know that my family carries a cursed bloodline. We were made to face the damned. Our blood makes us special. Our bloodline attracts the damned and gives us the power to fight them. The hunt continues for the one that got away, but my mission beckons me forth. This feeling I have is getting worse. Something pulls me west. I must find out why. I am the last one of us left. The blood of my family runs through my veins, and no one can take that away from me. I am not alone. I am their hope. I promise you. No matter what, come hell or high water, or actual hell itself, I am through with running. Flores Park had better be ready for me.
So yeah, again, loved how that turned out. By the way, the Blood Ruth plush. I'm glad that you have it, because I was like, damn, I don't have it next to me.
I stole it. It's the prototype. We didn't.
Oh, you stole it. Is the prototype? Okay, great. You have the prototype. Great.
No, it was great because they were in the warehouse and is that the prototype? And I was like, yeah. And she just put it in her bag in front of me. And I was like,
there you go.
Brandon
There
tried
you go.
to stop her, but she just like flipped him over.
Brandon couldn't stop this.
No, that's awesome. But you can go grab that, guys, if you want. It's still in the store, as well as some of the other covers as well. So be sure to go grab those, and you can get your own Blood Ruth plushie. I absolutely love the pictures that I have been seeing with you all, and that. Okay, so continuing on just really quickly, obviously you have all of these sort of demons. You got the greater demon. What was that kind of? It's almost like you're taking. How do I explain this? You're taking Blood Ruth through a gauntlet, right? In this story, it's almost like a Mortal Kombat kind of all the way up to Shao Kahn, right? So we start with Choke, obviously, and the people. I saw some folks in the chat talking about Deer Tick got to return. They have to return. What was the idea for their in inclusion in the story, and we really get to see kind of Blood Ruth utilizing her powers.
Well, it was really important for us to show what she is able to do and for her to have weaknesses. Michael and Lillian say that there's one undesirable. So when she fights Choke, she goes all out because she's like, oh, this is the guy. There's a greater demon here. And then she has to outsmart Deer Tick when she is at a disadvantage. And also Deer Tick is kind of a greater demon. Choke's a little dumb. I don't know if that read. He's a simple demon. Like in the right situation, he might even be a lovely party guest. He might be a good hang,
A good hang for somebody who's ripping people's arms off.
He doesn't know his own strength. He doesn't understand.
It sounds like a great party.
Choke reminds me of if you know the original Transformers, he reminds me of Grimlock.
I'm just saying, I have a list of people that can go to the party with me, and I'll just quietly leave.
Right? And I liked the song you found. That was like a weird surreal thing.
The song is actually about what's going on with Choke. It's written about the devil that comes across a dinner party and doesn't realize that he's going to be terrifying these people. He just wants to party.
Yeah.
But that was an old classic song. Those of you that actually put that song on to read the Choke part.
Yeah, that's cool.
Absolutely lovely. I wanted there to be a scale of demons, and we play a lot of video games.
Yeah.
So you always know there's at least 3, and then there's a big bad. That's long. And we thought it would be really, really cool to. We decided that she gets 2 demons and I get 2 demons. So
yeah, the first 2 demons were yours.
Yeah, Choke and Deer Tick are mine. Deer Tick is very influenced off. I don't know if y'all played Chrono Trigger, but there's sorceress Flea in there, and I was like, oh, what if I make my own version of Flea, because I love that character. That's why the name is Deer Tick, a nod over to Flea. And I also wanted her to be wearing a costume that is mocking of what Sydney is wearing, so it's kind of the first color version of hers. And that's a shout out to Santiago from Interview with the Vampire. If you guys remember that, when Brad Pitt shows up, he sees another vampire dressed like him, acting like him, repeating him because he's mocking him. And then, of course, you find out Deer Tick is not a beautiful woman. Deer Tick only likes to look like a beautiful woman, because what Deer Tick actually looks like is pretty nasty.
After Back in Moonlight, I feel like everyone's going to think we have a thing for bugs.
I love them. They're fascinating.
I do too. They're great.
We're just 2 kids we're Canadian. So and we played in the yard like well into our teen years, picking up bugs and stuff. Like, I'm still the person that if someone's like, there's a bug there, I'm like, I'll just
don't kill it.
I'll deal with it. Yeah, spiders especially go for me. I love them.
She has to get the spiders. I get the weird bugs, like that Japanese stink bug that got into BC. I'm always catching that big ass Japanese stink bug.
Because it's stinky. I don't want to end up stinky afterwards. So after she fights Choke and Choke, she goes all out. She makes blood armor. That doesn't work. He breaks right through it. She puts the blood, takes the blood from the people that were killed and uses that to rip him apart. And then she beats him, and she's like, okay. And you see this little moth. This little moth following her. And she starts exploring
I love that.
The castle. And turns out it's not just a little moth. It's oh, I almost spoiled something. It's a demon.
I know what you're gonna say. You gotta be careful.
I did it. I shut up.
Andrew is here. He's taking notes right now. 12 things that are not actually in Blood Ruth 1.
He was using like a connection, like, don't say that yet. Let them read the next book.
I also love that Blood Ruth was completely off guard, because she basically defeats Choke, and she's like, this is a nice castle. Like, what am I going to ask for? I can have that, or I can take that. And then she finds, the library. And the library was something important from I Saw number 2.
Right.
You went into the library for reference, And I will not spoil anything about the library, but it's a very good library.
Like all libraries are. Books are important.
All are
Yes.
very good. And yeah, this one in particular is one of the locations within the castle that had great importance. So we wanted to build up its importance. And Deer Tick felt it was very important for her own reasons. And we also got to see what a powered down, like she's already spent all her blood, Blood Ruth is going to do against someone that's much stronger, much nastier, and at full power.
Yeah, it was a bit of a Addams Family moment because she uses the book to defeat Deer Tick by putting her inside of it.
If you are a horror fan, there's like 1,000 Easter eggs to horror movies.
Yeah.
Sydney Bloodruth. There's even a hello, Sydney.
Oh yeah, which a few people actually found. Yeah, it was really cool. So after that's done, she finds the owner of the place, which is Edward Alexander Crowley, and he's like,
Yes.
"Oh God, you defeated all of them, all three, and the devil." And she's like, "Whoa. What do you mean all three and a devil?" And then we bring Faye, who is this demonic butterfly-like creature who is way more powerful than Sydney. That's like, oh great, I'm gonna bring you to the master. And every master has a guy like that, you know. They're like, oh, let me bring you to the master. Oh, this
a guy
is
who
sick.
serves the master, that Renfield energy.
Yes, that huge Renfield energy.
And it's kind of like Loomis in Halloween. He just builds up, oh, the master, oh, the master, oh, the master.
And I feel he was it was very highly influenced by anime, because you always watch anime and you're like, what the hell is that? Why is it so strong? And it goes over to Crowley and like shut his mouth and rips off his hands again because he's like, no more spells from you, buddy. And
yeah,
like,
I was inspired by a Chris Claremont that screwed me up as a kid.
Yeah.
Where Doctor Strange got tentacle arms and his mouth was sewn up. That gave me nightmares forever as a
yeah, that was so scary. And so so he's like, he like whips off what she's wearing. He's like, here, this is your sacrifice outfit, which was a cool spoiler. Like if you saw one of Kanan's shirts, she's wearing this white dress, and it's like, why is Sydney? Yeah, Sydney dressed
The
like
blood
that.
rose.
Weird. But
we totally planned that.
Yeah, I love that. But you know, we look at things very cinematically. We're like, ooh, third act. Now it's got to be all action. It's got to be something big.
Yeah, we write all of our comics like a movie with no budget.
And I was thinking about that episode of Buffy where they're like, what kind of demon is Glory? And they're like, Glory's a god. And it's like, oh, what kind of a demon is the last one? It's a devil. Oh, fart. That would have been great to, save some blood powers for. But, oh, well, here we go. And he's evil as can be. And I don't know how many people noticed, but he actually quotes Jesus Christ Superstar when he's Sydney, I'm overjoyed to meet you face to face. Yeah. So he wants to corrupt her, and he doesn't want to force her. He wants her to, nothing's better to a devil than taking something good and making it choose to become evil and disgusting. And he thinks he can talk her into it. And he knows she's suffering right now. So he starts playing with her so much. And at that part, yeah, there he is. At that part, and there's Faye too. Yep. And at that part, we're like, okay, she's got no powers left. She's in a bad situation, and this demon wants to turn her into his concubine. And he's like, look at hell and look at all the demon babies you're gonna make. Like, I felt so bad putting Sydney in that situation, but I was like, it's just a flash of hell. It just has to look like a scary image, like from an 80s horror movie where you're like, ugh. Let's let it never actually come to pass.
And Morningstar's totally a fallen angel. He's got that angel beauty about him too.
Right.
The eyes on the wings, which is another mockery of God, which was discussed with Marcos, because Marcos was like, the eyes on everything, that's a God thing, but it's okay if he's mocking God. And it's like, yes, he's mocking God.
Yeah, Marcos's designs on these were just like so
he was killer.
So far out. And we were like, okay, so she's got to outsmart him again. And this guy is so full of himself. He thinks it's actually working. So he's like, are you scared of me? And she's like, yeah, I am. And then she has all this Crowley blood on the ground. So she takes it and gets herself doused in it. Devil's not thinking. He's just all like, oh, I won. Look at all of this. And she's used the blood to put the Latin Virgin's Prayer all over her body. So she's going over to him like Princess Jasmine, like, I'm going to seduce you. You won me over. And then boom. And it's funny because in the script, I thought it was going to be a shot from behind because I was like, it'll be a little bum shot, very PG. And then I saw what Michael did. I was like, yowzer.
Yeah.
That is, I saw so many people putting that on Twitter. I was like,
Yeah.
people haven't gotten their books yet. But I was
Yeah,
like,
I know, right? That's too. It's too. I love that scene. I love how it came out. Yeah.
yeah,
You guys, I would show it. I just don't know how borderline it is with
I understand.
with YouTube. But if you got the book, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
No matter who picked up the books, you just scan in there, and I'm sure it's burned in everyone's memory now.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's so awesome because him and Faye explode into fires and go back to hell. And she's so cool about it. She just like puts her clothes back on, puts on her hat, and she's like, "Oh, here's Crowley. You're all right now. Don't worry, I got it figured out." And he's a little scamp, and he's like, "Haha, I was the undesirable the whole time." And she's like, "Of course you were. Of course you were the guy who summoned all the demons."
Right. Yeah. No, it's again, you're taking her through this gauntlet. And that's what I loved about it. You're learning more about these realms, these different demons. You have these different types of demons, so it does give it a bit of uniqueness. It was a creative way that you guys did that throughout the entire story, and for it to end the way that it did, you got the big baddie, and again, it's what I love about this in terms of the biblical ties, right? I love it, all that in general. We start that way and it almost ends that way because whether it was purposeful or not, you get the sense of like kind of with everybody remembers devil looking at the kingdoms and saying basically this is all could be yours essentially, or all this is mine, or what have you, right? And it goes back to kind of that by the end of the story, where you have Sydney kind of making these choices or having to make albeit a similar choice. Obviously, she ends up making the right one and that becomes the victor. But I love it and how the biblical threads tie into the story itself, even though it's not like straight out of the Bible. Though the beginning with Cain and Abel, that bit is. It's just done in a creative way as far as that overall theme of the story. I just absolutely love it. Everything about it, I love it. And again, someone like Michael's art, just I don't know, man. I just love it so much. I know Kanan probably loves it more than I do because it's just you're getting to see the definitive versions of some of these characters. Just real quick before we move on, I want to know about the Crowley edition of that you guys had. And bringing him in, what was that? What was that like? Because we do get a semblance of kind of where we're gonna maybe. Well, I'm not gonna NDA myself either. As far as what's gonna happen, but what his addition? What were you guys thinking with him?
Well, the castle was such a big win for Sydney that we couldn't let it be 100% that, because that's too much, and you can kind of see that he's a scamp. He hasn't learned his lesson. He probably never will. He threw a dinner party and summoned demons. And at the end, he's like, what, I can't summon anybody? So no, any of this? And she's like, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Like none of that. But you have this feeling kind of like Grandmama and the Addams Family, that this is a character that's going to constantly bring trouble, whether he does it in a good way or not. And it sets up that there's somebody right in Sydney's way that, even though she's got this great power, she's really come into her own. She's got this fabulous castle where she has all of these things that can assist her in her job. There's this guy who is a sorcerer who you don't necessarily know what his intentions are. He
no spoilers.
Who knows? He might be the greatest guy in the world. I don't know. But, you don't know what his intentions are, and he's going to cause trouble. And that's another setup for future stories, because literally he could be doing anything.
Yeah, for me, there's two important elements that Crowley brought in. One, he's the audience because he's such a fanboy of Sydney.
Yeah.
I love that you don't see her get her changed into the sacrificial thing, but you see on his eyes that he's like, damn, that's one hell of a woman. Endlessly asking her, like, what can I do for you? How can I pay you back? What can I do? Anything you want, Sydney. And he's also, the second part is, he's really funny and he's a moment of levity because obviously Sydney lost her whole family. Yeah. That was another element to be like, well, she's so stoic in Isom. Yeah. What happened? Because she is very, very serious. Yeah. Buffy is at least a little bit quippy, but Sydney is very serious. And it's nice to have someone in her world that is a little bit silly, that is a little bit ridiculous, that is a little bit like comedic relief almost, but also not fully comedic relief, because he's got his own darkness. He's like an onion. He has his layers.
Yeah. And then
that's a sign of good writing, man. Because you guys, when they come out, we've come out of so much intensity. You've like, okay, now we can breathe real quick.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if everything is like this all the time, man, it's just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, that was good having him as kind of like the comedy relief.
Oh, thank you, Kanan.
Yeah,
You just made my day. Dear diary.
Man, but yeah, like I said, it's just all around the story. I just love it. I love everything about it. I'm glad that the audience is loving it. To see that there are people that are calling it their favorite is something that's awesome to see. And yeah, we know that Blood Ruth 2 is going to be here soon enough.
And how about that last page, eh? Who shows up?
Yes.
Yeah, at the end of this book, there's been a lot of people that have been talking about that. You see a certain character whose cards you may or may not be collecting. Well, you should be, because you're learning a lot about characters on the side. That was when I read that for the first time, I was like, that's awesome. And I guess just really briefly, if you can, ending it on that note is quite the move. What led you thinking of that?
Well, when we first came on, boss, I won't spoil anything because Andrew unfortunately has showed up. He got out of his restraints. I don't know what happened. I got to get better at tying knots. But we talked about a couple of big events that we're moving towards.
Right.
There's at least two that we discussed. And I was like, the way that these big events are set up is that there is someone observing. Like in Marvel, it's the Watcher. Like if the Watcher is watching something, you know something of big importance is happening. I'm not as big a DC person, but I'm sure there's a DC Watcher, what have you, over there as well. And Dokuman, I love Dokuman. I love the cards. The cards are full of spoilers if you kids don't know.
That's very true.
Oh, that's why I love them. I live for them. There's so many Magus Numite spoilers. My gosh, you guys.
Yeah.
But I will say that getting him into the story, because he's such an observer, and then throwing him in observing so we can be like, something of importance has happened here. That just was really like, I honestly thought that I would get the feedback of like, you got to get him out of there. He can't be there yet. And I was like, I'm just going to be cheeky and just sneak him in and see what happens. And I love the conversation that Sydney and Crowley are having at the end, because she's so stoic and so serious. And he's just trying to flirt so hard and like get her to laugh. And she's
having none of it.
He's learned no lessons.
No.
He might have been totally decapitated and like left to bed. And he's still like, so another dinner party?
Yeah. And it is from our very first meeting, Eric, you said some stuff and we're like, this is such a good idea. Maybe it could inspire this stuff in Blood Ruth. And
yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. And to what you were saying about things being taken out, this is probably this is the only creative job I've ever had where you put stuff in where you're like, oh, this is gonna get edited out, and it doesn't get edited out. You're like, oh, that's cool, and you're like, the cool thing gets to stay in the book. That's nice. Like that. You're usually like, nah, but yeah, it's a pleasure to play with these characters that you created. Like, I know you're the most highly criticized man in comics, but if you look at your track record, you're like a Vince McMahon without the craziness. Like, you're after winner. It's just like nuts. And they're all so freaking different. Like, I saw him in Dokuman. Like, who are those guys? And then Blood Ruth and Yaira. Like, it's really fun to play with such well thought out characters. And it's not like you come here with like, oh, this is some guy I don't really know. You come out with like, this is this guy, he does this is happening, and this is going to happen now, and then maybe in 5 years this, and you're like, whoa, well, I can do something with that for sure.
I can't say what the thing is, but Eric, you asked for a thing in a recent thing, and we added it in, and I don't even know how that
Oh, I know what you're talking
thing,
about.
right?
Yes.
Without that thing there, it was garbage. And now I read it and I'm like, that was like the missing element. I can spoil that in Yaira, you were the one who brought in that penance moment for Stefania, where Brian overhears her praying in the cell.
Yeah.
And that made the whole like journey for me, because it's so important, because Stefania, she's a little punk shit at the beginning. She's a little abrasive. And the Yaira book, you really see her develop as a person. And that was like such an important moment, because that's where you saw it start to turn. And you got to see her in Bloodruth too.
Yes. And she's so nasty.
That was a cool addition. I love that. It's a simple. It was not like, so, because I can understand why people are like, look, you know, all the characters don't need to know each other or anything. I totally understand that, but I love the addition of Stefan. It's a quick, it's quick, and everybody that's read Yaira knows exactly who the character is, right? And they go in a moment of prayer, and then they bounce. And I love that addition. I love that addition to the story. I see my man's Mike is in the chat again. So yes, no, I guess right about. You'll know soon enough, Mike. ISOM 3 does answer some questions for you, so you'll know soon enough there. But yeah, before we move on to talk some great war, because I know that's the one that's fresh is on people's mind, I want to fly through some of these because I know there's some super chats that are talking about Blood Ruth. Mike has bad knees with a 5, says I love Blood Ruth much more than I thought I would, and the artist my favorite that I've seen from the Rippaverse. You found a future star. Look, that's what this is about. Like, as far as, you know, the company is concerned, like, we love our veterans. We have our Chucks, you have our Joes, the Cliffs. These are people that have been around for a while. But, you know, in starting this company, we also want to give people opportunity, right? And we know that there needs to be, I would love for Rippaverse to be a starting point for a lot of people as far as really, really putting them over as far as their careers. We need that new talent anyway. You need that fresh talent. You need those ideas, and having Michael come in, and I mean, just such a dominant book, you know, for him to really put his foot down and stamp to go for a fan art contest, to now doing like definitive versions of some of these characters that that's going to be around for a while. I just love it. I love everything about it, man. And that's why we kind of started the company here. I see Emily's here.
Hi, Emily.
Shout out Emily as always. Creative Welshman says with a 2 months says when are we getting Moo Blood, that time of the month heroine who's battled the spineless no pain and gets cranky without her soul light. I don't see that having a place.
I think that came out in a Marvel.
Yeah. Perhaps. Creative Welshman with a 5 says I wonder if the third PI is inspired by James Bond. The same time, also, how many characters did you create, Eric, when you originally launched the Rippaverse? I would have to that's a good little exercise there.
That's
obviously
like 5 questions.
Yeah, it's the PI question. We'll answer that soon enough. But as far as like how many characters I created, obviously all the characters in ISOM 1 I created before I started to really get things going. But there are some characters that, you know, we'll be talking about the Great War here in a little bit, but there's some characters particularly surrounding ISOM's family that I created during the time that before ISOM, I guess, 1 launched, right? So there is a lot of them. It was a lot of them. I know we needed a starting point, and thankfully we do have obviously some great writers here and great creators here that have been able to help you know, create some of these other characters. You got Carol and obviously the team Dirty Deeds team that's coming very soon. Obviously you got Sylv and all the characters like the Stefanias of the world, and then some of the other characters that are going to be popping up in other books as well that we got plans for. So glad to have them here now, but for sure we needed a starting point. I had these ambitions to have this like universe here, and that's what it was about. So let's say I read that from Mike. I told him himself what it says. Hello, mortals. It says I am not sure I like how many Buddy Morning Stars was depicted. Says he is not that bad. He even gifted me a scepter once. That sneaky devil did try spying on my domain through it though. Says document with a 10. Appreciate that. And obviously you're everywhere, so I can't even say that. You know, happy that you're here. You're already here. Barbecue Pins with a 5 says Ripper, Do you think cover C of Blood Ruth will possibly ever be back available for a limited time? I'll say this much about really all of the ones, all of the books. There, we have obviously some we keep for if you come to our live events, meetups, cons. We will. My dog is in front of the light, so I'm sorry that there's a big color change there because she, for whatever reason, likes the warmth coming off the light, so she's just hijacked it. But yeah, so those are the best places to grab some of that material. That said, there may be some opportunities in the future. We've talked about it, though we may only have like a handful of these, like certain covers, maybe certain merchandise items that have already expired. We may put them up for sale, like as like a little collection at some point. So maybe there will be an opportunity, but the best spot for sure is to catch us in person. Velvet Room Publishing with a 5 says, which of Cain's descendants survived the flood?
Yeah.
Wait, that's not in this book. We can't talk about that.
Well, there will be some opportunities to talk about a lot of stuff there. Let's just say that much. The thing of it, my man's with a 2 says, let's see here. Says, yo, shout out to the most exciting team in comics. Big shout out to Thinking, and you need to follow his page. He talks a lot of Rippaverse stuff as well. Same with Velvet Room Publishing. Go holler at both of those and be sure to follow them on social media. David with a 5 says, writers, what sort of structure do you guys use for creating comic book stories? Examples: Hero's Journey, 3-act, 5-act, Heretic Pyramid. Well, for me, I try to take, obviously the hero's journey is kind of just embedded kind of in the stories that we're all telling. But for me, I'm always, depending on what that book is, I'm always, and I'll let the others answer it how they need to answer it as well. But my approach is each story that I'm writing, it has a purpose, obviously, not just from the universe's standpoint, but in how that story is being structured. As an example, ISOM, we knew was a 3-part arc from the get-go. I was open about that day one. So while I have to tell like a story in like ISOM 1, for example, you know, you have spoiler alert, you have ISOM, you know, getting a call from his sister. He then goes and excuse me, gets a call from his sister. He goes to talk to Darren Fontano. That everything blows up kind of in his face, and we end up with him having a second battle with Santuan, and he ends up besting him right before he obviously goes to his sister and knows that this is going to escalate. So there's this element of I have to tell a story within that issue, obviously, that has more or less a beginning, middle, end. But I have a place that I'm trying to get right, and this is really just a third of the arc in itself. But not every story is told in that format. So I don't go into any story that I tell and any story I write with, okay, it has to follow this set of rules, because as an example, the story that me and Kanan did with Saoirse, right? I had 15 pages. That's it, right? to try to get you intrigued by this character. So that's a different approach telling that story than telling, and same goes for Salvage, right? And telling that story in comparison to something that is going to not only be a part of an ongoing series, but also a part of an arc. I'll let Carol and Jen, Sylvia also. I go Carol first in terms of how her approach is with storytelling. Obviously, the first story you're going to see from us, as far as her, she's been around the block as far as being an author, but first story y'all get from us is Dirty Deeds, and you're going to love it. But just in general, Carol, I mean, you have a lot of insight about the craft of writing. You could talk to the audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't want to eat up too much of your time. So I guess it depends on who I'm writing for. Am I writing for myself, or if I'm writing for a client, right? So, like, for example, like if I had a character that you made, I would like absolutely like approve everything prior to doing it, because it's your character and I want to make sure that's following the vision that you have. So in that sense, I would do like a 1-page summary of what I want the story to be about before I do anything else. And once that's approved, I move on. And then the spreadsheet comes out, and that shit looks like, I've been told it looks like something from the Matrix, where I've got like columns of like scenes and what's going on and characters, what time of day it is, what the weather is. But definitely one of the big motivating factors for that is what emotion I want the audience to feel from the story. That's the big thing. So that's always like my guiding star. Some people are kind of like, I want to write this really cool epic scene. I'm like, no, I want my reader to cry, right? There was actually something that I sent to Andrew to read, and I was patiently waiting for him to read it because I was waiting for a particular reaction. And so I knew that I had gotten it because he sent me a very angry gif of like a dog beating somebody up. And I was like, okay, good. That was the reaction I wanted. That was what I wanted. Good. So that's how I do it in a nutshell. But yeah, the story outlining is a very long discussion that people like to have. So.
And before I let Saskas go, obviously a lot that helps me is my universe Bible. I tend to create characters. There may be a character or two that I create along the way as I'm telling the story, but most of my characters are created before I even write the story. That's just my approach. Carol was actually the actual template that we have, and I think I maybe mentioned this before. The template that we have as far as universe Bible entries, Carol was the one that built that, which helped me out tremendously, right? Because I have like this base information that I know I need to have for these characters, so I'm very familiar with them before I write them. Jenna Sylvia, I would love for you to go through everything as far as your process, because that's a great question.
Oh yeah.
we try to pitch it like a movie.
Yeah.
So we do a log line where it's just a very short form. Then we do a synopsis, which is a longer format. And then we do a breakdown of each issue. When we were writing for Marvel, we had to have, we were doing per issue. So every certain amount of pages, things had to get to an exciting point. So it'd make you want to turn the page or get the next issue. And we translated that over with Yaira. I feel like we did a 3-part, like 3-act structure.
Yeah.
Whereas Blood Ruth, we did it more like TV. We did the opener, the 3-part structure, and then the epilogue at the end.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, the way we do comic books is the same way we do movies, except we forget about budget, which is super liberating. Like with the dragon. Are you kidding me? The dragon. I would never. I mean, that I would want it to be like made by Stan Winston and actual, legacy effects. So it would be a practical dragon.
That's your whole budget.
That would be it for me. I'd never work again. I love visual effects, but that's also extremely expensive. And we do that with the scenes too. We have an opening scene that usually in the movie would come before the credits. So it's like, check out this Cain and Abel thing. And then you got Sydney fighting vampires. And then we have story. And then we set up this story because we need to.
Oh yeah, and Lillian, you have that opening.
There's something that happens in Lillian in the opening that you're like, oh, okay, this is something. And then you get some story, and then you still every 16, 15 pages, there's a oh shit moment, a cliffhanger moment that either keeps you watching the movie or gets you to buy the next comic book, or is a good place if we're going to split them up into 15, 16 little pages. And the first thing we do at all before we write a story is we say, why does it exist?
Yeah.
What is the point of the story? What do we want people to take away? And me wanting to write a story about a superhero is not a good enough reason. There has to be something that people take about it. For Yaira, that's a lot about loss. It's a lot about having flaws and growing to be the person that you need to be, becoming your own hero. And Sydney is a lot about the duties that we have, and it's very godly. It's like, do the right thing.
Yeah.
Do the right thing even at the expense of yourself. Yaira does not do the right thing even at the expense of herself. Yaira does the thing Yaira wants to do even at the expense of everyone else.
Even at the expense of Yaira. At the end of Yaira 1, she's like, I guess I die now.
But I get to kill, so it works. If I could murder 3 people, I guess I'll die.
Okay. By the way, what was that? David. That's who asked that. It's a great question, by the way. We got Cajun Corey, my man, says, love to my favorite twins, Jen and Sylvia, Eric, Carol, and Kanan. I really enjoyed Blood Ruth a lot more than I thought I would. Well, we're glad that you enjoyed the documentary packet. He says, I am told the last page of the story was best. Fair enough. Our Browns with a 5 says, don't know how you guys keep doing this, but I love how you guys keep getting the right voices for the characters. Great work. Appreciate that. Much love to you there. We got Johnny Red with a 5. So Rippaverse in the fall in Dallas with Caden, Sasha, Carol, Mike Barron, Mike, Chuck Dixon. And I'm excited. Well, I I haven't committed quite yet to Rippercon, but we'll see. We got a 5.
I don't even think we asked people. Like,
yeah, right. You were with a 5, just kind of volunteered us. Got my Yaira and Baby Ice statues. Woohoo! Yeah, I got Yaira back there next to Gogeta. We have Winter Wolf with a 10 says, I have a hard time picking between Yaira, Bloodruth, and Horseman. That's my favorite. I love my Yaira statue and can't wait for Bloodruth one. But how dare you lump Utah into the same territory as California? Yeah, we're about to start talking Great War here in a bit. Barbecue Pits with a 10 says, a big horror fan. So seeing that merge into superhero universe is everything for me. Hands down, my favorite comic book so far. I love to hear that. Says, will Bloodruth get a statue too for me to add to my collection? Perhaps she will. I'm not against the Bloodruth statue. We got Joe Music with a 5 says we need a Bloodruth animated series where Chloe Elmore can reprise her role as the voice for Bloodruth. I'm not against that, obviously. We got Sin City Villa with a 10 says, any update on yearly membership? Yeah, not yet. We're working on some stuff on the back end. Says, I know it can take a while, just checking. Thank you all for your talents and creativity. As someone with none, you're all amazing. Everybody has a little bit of creativity in them in some capacity. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Great War of Separation here. Let's talk the covers and everything. Let me move us over there. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. All right, let's get that out the way. Okay, so we got the Great War of Separation. This is cover A. Same thing, Kanan. What are your thoughts? Because I love this cover because it's like you're telling. It makes sense once you're reading the story, right? As to why this cover exists. There's some things obviously that are not in Great War Separation #1. You see that in 2 and beyond. But what was the approach here? This is a mega cover. I love everything about it. So many different characters, so much going on with this. Please talk about it a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's like taking a whole bunch of information and trying to take like those old Polaroid snapshots. I like, not all the time, but it's good to have a cover, man, that kind of summarizes everything that's happening. So if you read the first one, it's got basically all the events that have taken place. Some are even sort of alluding to future events, but it's just kind of like a collection of, just to kind of show, for one, just how chaotic and bad things got. You got the Texas flag in the background that's shredded. And
right.
You got those who've read it, that's Isam's father, and then you got him and his mom and Altona when they were younger. You got a younger Brian Solare, and him with his, you see the stars are kind of being crumbled, which ties into what's going on.
Right.
Where it's just kind of like, you pick your side.
Right.
Where you're going to be. Choose which side you're going to be on, and all of this chaos is as really the country fractures and kind of separates into these different factions. And so it's kind of like, even then, Brian is still kind of like early reprising the role that he'll eventually become in Alpha Corps.
Right.
He's trying to regulate. He's trying to police it. He's a little bit more gun ho than he is.
Yeah.
He's still a little daredevil in the Alpha Corps, but back then it's like, it's like fresh off the factory kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Let's go. I can take on the world, but you slowly realize, man, that you're not the only one. For every positive reaction, there's a negative reaction.
Yeah.
So you realize that there's more people on the chessboard than what you realize. And so, that's what I wanted to show, man. Just kind of like it's a war, and it's just, who's going to survive. And in the midst with showing Isam and Altona, it's like you got innocence. The war is never pretty. It's never winners. People may say, this, that, or the other, but at the end of the day, as we know through our American history, man, like you got villages. Vietnam, you had villages that lost multiples of people overseas. They weren't even involved. Then you got, same thing with here. Soldiers returning and getting ridiculed. And So
Right.
it's a lot of, it's never pretty. And sometimes you got to get nasty to get results. So
that's it. And I mean, you put that perfectly. And like I said, I love so much about that cover because it does allude to your point, some of the things that are happening in the future. I know there's some characters that people saw because there's characters that you see come like show up, like Solera. You see him in his in the first one, I believe you only see him in his fatigues. There, but you know where this is kind of going, right? It does serve as a more or less Ice O'Brien like origin, right? Now you're going to get a lot more of that going into issue 2. Issue 2 really cranks things up, trust me, on this. But as you all know, this scene right here, this is the first scene. Well, let me take a step back because a lot of people are confused on like how the story came about. So I'm gonna set the scene there. Okay, so the Great War of Separation is a war that I outlined as far as the major events prior to starting the Rippaverse, right? Reason being is because I know that other publishers have gone the route of basically the world, it does have more or less a modern feel, and it's the world outside. And while I wanted to have these superpowered beings that exist in this world, I did want to have some familiarity that comes associated with that, but I wanted to make something that's unique to our universe, right? And the way that I could do that was through its just general geo, right? Like just how the landscape was my way to approach it. So I was like, okay, well, what if Texas in our universe is not Texas of now, and there would be some future stories that we're going to tell there after the Great War of Separation 1 and 2 and beyond, obviously, because this is you're going to get 4, maybe 5 issues out of this. But I wanted to set the scene, and that way it forces everybody here as a writer to be creative, right? Because you're not just simply dealing with the world outside. There's some originality to this, and you got to come up with these original concepts. So I came up with the war itself and its outline prior to ISOM like even existing, as far as you guys understand. I went to Chuck with that outline, and I want to talk about an information dump that I gave him, and he was able to make it all make sense. It was awesome. I came up with all these bullets points. Like, these are things that need to happen. There are some characters that I created. You guys introduced to Plessy. I created Plessy. Same goes for Isom's father, Isom's mother as well, which is just the first time you guys see them. Technically, Cliff drew them first. And then we go into like we have this younger version per se of the characters. And I love that. I love that. Big shout out to Jack, by the way. Jack Herbert did a phenomenal job on the story. Candace Hahn was the colors for the first book. Love the vibrance and everything that she brings. But I bring all that up to say that Chuck was able to make it all make sense. This was the first kind of story that was more of a collaborative effort, right? That we did, and he wrote it. He gets the credit for the writing for sure. And a lot of the characters that you all are going to get introduced to, you guys got introduced to, making sure I'm not spoiling anything for the next issue. You got introduced to Zeno. Obviously, that's an original character. You got introduced to some of those excepts that were being weaponized, the baddie excepts in it as well, and all that stuff. So this scene is very important because there's a lot of people that had some misconceptions about the story where they thought Texas, and I set it up perfectly in my honest opinion, because you didn't understand. A lot of people didn't get this. They kind of picked it up through Mike's letter that he brought up, but it's not just Texas that's not part of the United States. And so I love how Chuck starts this, where you have young Isom having this book open where United States were once whole, and he's talking about like, well, in this, why is it like this in this history book? and see, which basically leads you to believe that, well, even before this particular war, it was already fractured. The United States is not the United States as you think of it today, right? And that is why this scene, from a lore perspective, is pretty impactful here, because you get your first sort of whiff of that this is and you also get a pre-war. If you read the book, I open up with there's this pre-war map, and I don't think I've said this publicly. Who did the map? And it was Irene Shakowski. Big shout out to her. Rini did the map there. I don't think I've ever said that publicly, but she did that map for us. As you all know, with her own projects that she has in the Fiendish series, she's really she nerds out about that type of stuff. Wonderful artist. And I got her. She also did the poster that's over there that you guys can wait over there right behind me of ISOM as well. And she's doing some future work for us. But yeah, she did that map, and I wanted to show you all a sort of pre-war map, so you already see that, well, the United States is broken up. You have Brumhouse, you have the Mid-Southern Alliance, you have Greater Florida. It's already broken up prior to the Great War of Separation. So perhaps there's some more stories that will be told on even that event, things that happened before. Who knows? We'll maybe talk about that. But that's why this scene here is so very important. But I love the addition of that Chuck using kind of to tell the story from the ground level, right? Is you use an Isom, young Isom, before he's even Isom. He's just Avery. He's a kid, right? And you have young Altona. You got to meet obviously his father as well, and his mother. And I love everything about it because their position kind of in the story is to be able to tell it from that perspective of like a citizen, right? And that's why they exist there. And I love that. I love that he used those particular characters. You learn that Isom was alive during the Great War of Separation. Him and Gooding were alive because they had a conversation in Isom, right? Too, talking about, hey, what do you know? What do you know about? What do you remember about the war? Great War of Separation. So I love how all of this turned out. I want to go around table to kind of talk about what you guys. I'll start with Carol, like obviously being heavily involved in kind of the editorial process. Great War of Separation #1. How do you feel about it?
I liked it a lot. And I say that with extreme nitpicking as somebody who was in the military, because like my favorite thing to do is read military stories by people who haven't served. It's like my absolute like favorite. But I was going through there and I was kind of like, nope, this is good and that's good and this is great. And like, oh man, I can't believe he did that. And there's like some military stuff that goes on in there where like an average person would be like, huh, that's whatever. But like as military, you're like, oh shit, I can't believe he did that. Like there's one scene where like Brian like does something with his insignia and it was like a total like music stop moment for me because like that's just like unheard of, right? And so that for me, because like I'm not gonna lie, like you know Brian's hot and everything, but like he wasn't like my favorite. He was just nice to look at, right? But like I saw him do that and I was like, man, that guy got cojones. Like okay, I'm for it. That's what I want. So. And then I think my other favorite part of this is because, to be honest, like I think the only introduction that we've had really of Harriet up until this has been like in the Rippaverse, and she's kind of like, let me teach you how to make pie. Right. Yeah. And so when I actually got to see Harriet, I was like, oh, good. She does make sandwiches and stuff. That's great. Like I love that. But I have a sneaking suspicion by some of the buildup in here is that she's going to play a bigger part in there as well, because like. Again, I grew up in a military family, so like this all like pulls like different heartstrings for me. But like, you know, like when she watches like her husband get in the car and drive off, and when she's got to be like the woman of the house, like even though Avery's like, I'll mow the yard, and she's like, yeah, that's great. Right? Yeah, no, it's like she's like epic mom, and so like I'm looking forward to seeing more of that for sure, and I hope it will be there. I'm saying that as somebody who's read the script, and I'm just sitting here just saying random shit at this point.
And look, it's just like I said, I love that aspect of it. I mean, most of my family, especially on my father's side, is they're all military, all of them. And it's having that's why my grandfather ended up passing from being sick from the war. And that moment was, I believe, it's extremely impactful. I know a lot of I had military folk writing to me. Definitely, you got people seeing their loved ones having to go off the wars cannot be an easy thing. My grandmother had to do it time and time again. And him putting that in there, and then, you have their scenes like, okay, young Avery thinks, oh well, I'm young and I got it under control. I'm the man of the house now, which is cool because it speaks to his ambitions as very much Avery and his attitude. But that you see the tears actually in the eyes of his mother as he has to watch her husband kind of go off to war. It's just so good. It hits it's very much a war story, right? It's a very much a war story that we have these kind of superheroes kind of woven into it. I just loved how everything turned out. Jenna, Sylvia, what are your thoughts, just in general? Obviously, talking about some of the things that happened in the Great War Separation.
That cover with Zeno. I am.
Shout out Bart Sears, man.
That was nuts. I'm a huge body horror fan. I love David Cronenberg. I love John Carpenter. The Thing was probably one of my favorite movies. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Ooh, Chuck came out to play. He made someone really, really scary." Is it going to be a problem? I don't know, but it's really good storytelling, and I love the different perspectives you see. What Jack Herbert does so well is the storytelling through what he decides to put the focus on in the frame, and how he has the panels come out. The whole stuff with Harriet and Jacob, it's so beautiful. It's nice to see human moments in comic books too, when like she can't open the pickle jar and he's like, "Woman, what would you do without me?" And she's like, "You have your sandwich without pickles," and you're like, "Oh, they love each other." And then the kids obviously don't get it. They're too young to really understand
exactly
what's happening to Dad. And Altona is, gosh, she's cute as a button. She is the most badass. And also, Carol, I totally understand what you're saying about Brian Solari. I remember reading the script and being like, he is the most badass dude ever. Like, look at him taking no shit. Will he continue? Well, this is a story of how he becomes a war hero, right? And it really makes you understand Brian, and then you kind of look back at other times you see him, like in an Alpha Core or even in ISOM 1, and you're like, oh, this guy's got layers. This guy's a more complicated dude than you really think of.
Oh, yeah. As someone who knows how the war ends, every page is so beautifully set up, not just with the script that Chuck did and the story you did, Eric, but Jack's artwork.
Oh, man. It's so good.
It's magnificent. But I know the Great War of Separation, it's like a good movie. You're going to want to read it a few times, especially after you've gotten through it the first time and you know what happens. And then you know what weight certain moments and certain pages carry. I was also very fascinated that it was, I was so excited it was happening already, because I wanted to know why Brian was a war hero. And I mean, that panel alone, war hero, just for that, the kind of integrity that he has. And it also kind of hints at who he is going to perhaps be in the future, because he does what is right, whether it's what someone's telling him to do or not do. I mean, you also see that in Alpha Core, that he stops a bank robbery without filling out an effing D99. And he's like, well, would have gone boom if I didn't stop. But, you know, don't care about that. I love his integrity, and I love, because like most of us know, the law doesn't always reflect justice. The rules aren't usually what's the most fair. And the fact that he does what's right, even in the case of like suck on them stars, that's badass. I love it.
Speaking of badass, Sanders, you don't usually see a politician with balls and integrity. That was nice.
Yeah, Plessy was a fun one. Like that's one of the characters that, a few characters that I did create in the story outside of the ones that are just connected to ISOM. And I love the story, just Chuck making making Plessy obviously makes sense. There are some events that are going to take place obviously at the end of or going into the next issue that are pretty vital to that I'm not obviously going to spoil it, but you deal with some of those conflicts, which is what the story deals with, it where you have Texas, which is part of the United States at this time, and they have something that's being inflicted upon them, right? And how the United States expects them to act versus how they want to act, or how Plessy and some of the others want to act. Those are diametrically opposed as you're starting to as you see, right? And that in itself creates the conflict, right? When you're dealing with, you got this cartel stuff, all the stuff is happening at the same time, and it's brewing to what we have in this story, and some of what a lot of, I mean, trust me, guys. Number 2, I know you see Stallion right at the end of it. I think that's the story ends with Stallion first being introduced, as well as this whole again weaponization of these excepts, some of which were criminals by the United States. Trust me, it's about to kick into a completely a whole different level here going into issue number 2. And oh man, it's so good. I would love for Kanan just briefly to talk about, kind of much like you did with what we talked about with Michael. I mean, Jack is insane, man. And what was it like working with him?
Man, I mean, student.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Igor can attest to it. I think he even dropped the super test. Like, how do you edit somebody, man, that's like at this level?
Yeah,
like
he's insane, man.
It's every page, man. I say it all the time, but it really is a tutorial on how to render. And like, if any artist is out there who wants to learn how to use lighting and shadow correctly in a comprehensive manner, and to tell a story and to establish mood and atmosphere, Jack is definitely that guy. And like, there's a scene where I believe it's Zeno. He's at a campfire. And the way that he's lit, man, I'm like, dude, like, do you know how long I've been trying to achieve that look? like he's like, if you took like Alex Ross's style, but you made it more like an illustrator. That's kind of like, that's kind of like how his style is. And so,
in the same voice too, he's like, okay, I'm gonna put a little blood over here. We're gonna highlight it over here.
I mean, it's very subtle. It's not. Like that right there, like that face and that final panel, man, is like textbook on how to draw somebody's lit from the bottom and do it correctly. His work, man, is just, I mean, it was easy. I mean, I don't really think I had to really say much or edit much, because everything was just, like, spot on. And same with Candace's colors, man, and the way
Candace is wonderful.
Brings out those lighting moments and intense moments, and establishes mood and atmosphere, man. It's beautiful. Great War is like one of my favorite, except for Zaylin.
Zaylin's nuts. Yeah, like the artwork on Zaylin is crazy, man. People are gonna be.
That's the beauty of like all the artists, man. That, like from Deborah to Jack to Cliff and Will, like all the artists, man. Like each one like fits each book so well, and so they've established a feel for that book, and it's almost like it was custom for them. So being able to see Great War, where it's going, oh my gosh, y'all, oh my god, visually it's just like, I'm taking notes, man. I'm taking notes. And I want to say one thing about like Brian, man. Like, when you see him in Alpha Core, it just kind of like I saw him, I was saying, okay, you don't really know about the police officer or whatever, but seeing Great War now, and what's going to happen and the things that conspire and take place when their ship goes down in Alpha Core, when you understand his nature, it makes that moment that much more impactful. Like, point. Dang it, like what he says in the trailer, we don't fail. That's not an option.
Right.
And then it happens, and when you have somebody that's so duty bound like he is, it's like, dang, like, what do we do now?
Right.
Yeah, like this, like for Brian, like this is all I know. He's like that cop that's like, this is all I know.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do now? So like most military guys do become officers once they get out.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's like I can't. Sometimes it's hard to
This is all
turn it
they
off.
know, right?
Yeah, so you just go to the next thing. And so for things to happen the way they did in the first Alpha Corps, and knowing a lot of the Great War stuff, it's like, dang man, that had to hit him hard.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, obviously, this is what the whole entire story. I mean, you're learning a lot about. That's how we've set it up, marketing wise. It is Brian's origin, right? And you're gonna learn why he is the man that he is today. Granted, yeah, we're far removed from it in at least the current day of the Rippaverse, so the day of the ISOMs and all that. But having to experience what he had to experience here is a pretty big deal. Right. And again, a lot of that stuff is going to make sense. I mean, that we just showed the previous scene, which is impactful in itself, right? Which is what Carol had kind of mentioned and alluded to,
like,
where
like that the stars, like that's 25 years.
Right.
That's 25 years of his life that he just threw on the table.
Yeah.
And a bunch of ass kissing that had to go into that too. Like
yeah. Exactly. So it's you're learning a lot about why he is the man that he is, and he's dealt with some of this. Obviously it's to a different degree than what he's dealing with the Alpha Corps, where this is like with chain of command. And that was a big conflict in Alpha Corps #1. If you guys had read that, and you could see kind of how that process kind of impacted him over the years. But yeah, this story, you're going to get why he is the man that he is, but also, which is perhaps the most important, is why the landscape is the way that it is, or how it got to be. Because it's not Texas as you think it is. Our universe is, and American, like North American territory in general, is just not whatever you think it is. It's not that, and that's why I went into it with that idea, because I wanted to force everybody here, including myself, hell, especially myself, to be creative, right? We have to come up with fresh ideas. We can't just simply rely on the world outside. We can't. We can't do that, because our world from the ground, I mean, just the core of it is set up differently. And I love what people are doing with having now understood this, as far as every writer here, every creator, every artist, and how they're kind of telling their stories. Because they can't just simply rely on like real world politics and all that stuff. We're in a completely different era. And again, big shout out to Chuck as well as Jack depicting some of these characters, because I know most of the characters here were all. Shout out to Marcos Rios, again, workhorse of a concept artist. He developed a lot of these characters as far as their actual design, but with the interior work is where you start to get a lot of the definitive versions of some of these characters. And like, to your point, Kanan, and like this scene alone, right, is just, Zeno. We had him on the cover. I actually have the cover right here, right, where you got our throwback cover, where you get him by Bart Sears, and you're realizing what all that he can do. And everything, and you see him in action. Maybe you see him even some more throughout the entirety of the Great War, but you see kind of what this guy is incapable. What this guy is capable of doing. And look, I just overall love the setup. It's a great first issue, in that it sets everything up like as in we are just getting started. Like, you've read nothing yet. 2 the stakes are even higher, and then we go into obviously 3, 4 and beyond, or whatever. It's just all around great story. Satisfied with how it came out, and I'm just thankful, blessed to even be working with guys like Jack Herbert, who's been around the block and knows exactly what he is doing, and everybody here knows Kanan is like, as far as I'm concerned, like the best artist here, right? And for Kanan to be like, I'm taking notes, just says enough about how good this guy is. And some of the stuff that you're going to see is going to absolutely blow your mind with. I'm not going to spoil it at all, but there are some things that are happening with characters that got introduced in the first book that I think some people are going to have a lot of fun with. You're going to have a lot of fun.
I really like this project because I haven't had to check on it at all. Right. Like there's some projects like Kanan can contest to this, like where I'll just suddenly show up and be like, I have notes, right? Like I'll be like, whatever, right? But like this was like the one where it's like I would pop in and be like, it's perfect, and then leave, right? Like it's like, oh, it's still perfect. I love it. Other times be like, oh man, look at it being perfect again. Like this is gonna be great. Like
some of the like art wise, like some of the adjustments that we had to make were all just very minor. It was like flag in the background. We need to make sure that the like it's like little stuff like that, because Jack got it, man. He is a professional. Dude knows what he's doing, and he just got it. He just was like, I know what I'm doing here. And there weren't a whole lot of information, not a whole lot that, you know, between yourself, and very minor between yourself and Igor and some of the art editors having to just point out that he would make an adjustment to. He knows exactly what he's doing. And I think a lot of that shows, and Kanan, you can speak to this, obviously being, you know, the art director here, and how these artists have a lot. It's funny. Example, I'm not going to say what he said, but big wall of text. And I don't say that in a disrespectful manner, of Jack bringing up some ideas that he had that were a side point, had nothing to do with the story. Great idea. But what it shows is how invested these guys are in this universe. This isn't just another commission for them. It's not just another gig. These guys actually believe in this universe, and it shows in their work, right? That it's not like they're just playing around here. Like they take it serious, and they're forward thinking and where the universe is going. And they want to be a part of it. And I know that has to make it easier for you, Kanan, especially when you have guys, and that's what I mean. We've pretty much we've batting 100 here, because these guys just get it, and they also care about the universe, right? And I'd imagine that for you, it's got to make it easy for you to edit.
You have to, you know, when you're invested in. Me and Igor have talked about it. Igor, we talk all the time. About the art, man, but it's true, man. Like when you care, the artwork cares. If that's right. If that's the way to say it, man. Because when you don't, and you're not interested in the subject matter, it shows. Like for me, you know, I'm always, you know, itching to work on something. You know, books and all that stuff. But I bide my time. You know, I know my time is coming. You know, Saoirse and things like that.
Sure.
But
wait until that.
Able to just be able to pour into some of the people, some of the younger guys and gals, and then learn from the older. Like it takes me back to the studios of the 90s. You know, where, you know, the Wild Storms and Top Cows back in the day, and, you know, where you would just, and I know we're all in different locations, man, but it feels like an in-house studio.
Absolutely.
And that's a credit to you, Eric, man, and just establishing the culture, like for real. And so we have all invested. Like we don't say like, the Rippaverse, you know, this, that, and the other. We say, you know, we don't say, you know, ISON dropped at the Rippaverse. It was like, no, we're dropping. Or, you know, our books or something, you know, because it is, you know, this is our ecosystem, man. And like you said, the message that was left in our, you know, company Slack, like he's thinking creatively,
right?
You know, he's passionate about it. It is a heck of an idea.
Yeah, it is. It's a great idea.
Like, dude, like that would be. But that, like you said, that just shows, man, that they care, that we all care, man. Like, you know, I've told you countless times, man, you know, whether your name is coming up, Eric, on the good or the bad, I'm telling you, particularly certain people I'll just say in my culture, are starting to come around.
Yeah.
Because they're starting to understand, man, like, okay, there's something about this. Like, it's amazing when you create a universe of characters that people actually enjoy.
Yeah.
People will invest.
Yeah.
People will buy, they'll spend the money because the characters, for one, they're relatable. It's you know, Rippaverse kind of reminds me of that golden age of like heroes. You know, I'm a big fan of like the 1940s and 20s, and you know, you got like Mighty Man and like all these weird, like, you know, obscure characters. I think like one of the comic verses that I always loved was Astro City. because the characters, nobody really knew who they were, but at the same time, it was so unique and so dynamic. This was why I loved The Watchmen. It was the same way. I just think they should have stayed on their own. So like all those universes, like the Rippaverse is like that, man. Like we like you said, there are events that happen within the Rippaverse that may mirror reality, but it's its own universe. And the history that we're establishing and the politics are within the story.
Right.
Not like real world stuff. Like the politics are within what's going on, based on the Great War and based on this and based on that. And so, like you said, it forces people to be creative, but at the same time, I think it keeps us focused. So that
I agree.
Have like several variants and the multiverse. And this is I saw him now, and he's like 6'8", and he's like and there's another I saw him that's kid I saw him only in the whole world of children, and like stuff like that. Like, I mean, it's cool for the folk that do that. That's their playground. But this is our sandbox, man, and this is what we do, and everything's connected. And so you can always reference, as I was thinking about, as a timeline, as we expand, you'll be able to go back to that timeline. Like, yep, that's when the Great War happened. Yep, that's when this happened. Man, like, and all the little things that happened that led back to this. And so it's beautiful to see, man. Like, this is the most fun I've had, and I've been drawing for, I've been mostly in the indie realm, but my first professional gig was probably 2004. So I've been doing and been drawing for longer, but this is the most fun I've had doing this job, I think, ever. I've always wanted to find a place to, as I said, 10 toes deep, man. Come bring it down and learn and grow and build and this, dude, the ideas that everybody's coming up with. Y'all mentioned Blood Ruth too. Oof, y'all only knew where it was going. I don't even know all the details, but just some of the stuff I know. Like, you guys it's gonna blow your mind. Great War, the second one. Oh my gosh. And so, just get ready, man. Like, it's this is the best time to get back into comic books, and it starts here. So
I agree. You're at the floor, ground level, and that has to be intriguing and engaging for a fan or customer. And this is why I take everything that we do so seriously. And it's obviously much easier to do that when you work with all these awesome people here, right? Like I said, they're all passionate about it, and it makes my job easy. Get up early every day. I try to lead by example to the best of my ability.
You don't sleep. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Kane is usually up when I'm up too, though. Like, I'll be up early. Me and Kane are messaging. It's like 5 a.m. But he's up doing his thing, and but that it's just, obviously I'm having a blast. I'm having a blast creatively. I'm having a blast just running the company, but being able to share that alongside all these awesome people is really what it's about. I know Igor brought this up in the chat and how just how we approach just even how we work with artists is different, right? And it's more of an updated model to make sure that everybody's taken care of, but also giving people skin in the game, which is what I always believed in anyway. And I learned a lot about that stuff in the music industry. And you gotta let these people wings fly, and it shows, and everybody's just hard work. And I gotta tell people not to work when they don't need to work, right?
It's
how
true. I saw him working on Saturday, and I was like, "Do you need help?" And he was like, "Go away." And I was like, "But you're working."
Exactly. I'm trying to tell people not to work. But no, it's just it's awesome. It's fun. And I'm glad it's fun for the audience, because I know that definitely with some of the, at least in American comics, with the major publishers, it's almost impossible to get into that stuff in this day and age. These characters have been around for so long, and it's not like the continuity, they took care of that. And because we're considering that from the get-go, and I know it's fun, but it's fun time because they're here when it started. It's not the 30s or whatever when Superman and the Batmans and stuff were created, right? It's now it's we have all these other characters that customers will and that are going to be around for a while. And like I said, I'm just having an absolute blast, and I'm glad that everybody also creatively were able to let their wings fly as well. People that have been like Carol again doing Dirty Deeds. It's a big deal, right? It's a massive deal
You have to feel bad for him because now that he's let me try something once, I'm kind of like, hey, I got an idea.
Yeah, and I love that. Don't get me wrong. I love that Sasuke's do it all the time as well. Like they're like, I got this idea. And I'm like, okay, let me hear the idea, right? That's how I am. I want to hear it. Like, even if it's something that maybe the audience doesn't know about 2 years from now, it's still something that's worth talking about because we know where we're gonna go. So that stuff doesn't bother me at all when I hear people like, like Carol or Jenna Sylvia or whoever saying, hey, I got this idea. What do you think about it? I'm like, okay, I think it's something that we can do. And then it's our job to try to figure out when we can make this make sense. But I love that everybody, again, they're forward thinking and they care enough about the universe to even be considering that stuff, right? Where it's like they're getting their job done, but they're also thinking about the future and the Rippaverse and some of the stories that are being told. That's how a lot of this stuff got conceptualized. Even with Joe, right? Like something like a Zaylan exists because Joe's forward thinking, and he's like, as he's working on Horseman, he's like, or these other Alpha Core, I can't remember which one he was working on. He's like, you know what the Rippaverse needs, right? And he gets to talk with Chuck, and they collaborate. I don't even know about it. Yeah, and they pitch it to me like, hey, all right, we got everything ready to go. What you think? And I'm like, this is genius. Absolutely, that'll be the next book after Horseman or whatever. And it's just so cool to see as we create these sort of these characters that, again, customers are going to be around for a while. So it's exciting. I can't wait for people to read some of the story. The next story that you guys will be getting your hands on will be Rippaverse issue number 3. As we get those CGCs, we'll start sending those out. And then obviously right now we have active the Great War Separation 2. We have Zaylan as well as ISOM number 3. And all of those are killer stories. Zaylan, I don't want to say it's a consensus.
Oof. Just say it, dog.
But
because it's not fair, right? It's like we all know how good that book looks, and it's like every book that we put out looks good in its own right. This book looks amazing, man. Like, this book
it's insane.
We have no right. You're making the books pretty. Like, you're supposed to save money and do art cheaper, not make it better. We talked about
exactly
this.
not to improve, right? And that's the goal, right? I want every like, you read Blood Ruth, you're like, all right, that's my favorite. I already know Zaylan's gonna be a favorite for a lot of people because everybody's seeing Joe and Fabio, and you know how good they ink, and also as we've grown with Kanan and Igor, they've been able to add little notes here to make it even better. Marcos's colors on it, I don't know what it is about Marcos's colors on Zaylan. Yeah, it's nuts, man. Like, obviously he's an insane. I think Marcos is in the chat. Marcos Martinez is in the chat. Like, yeah, he is. He's right there.
I think we got both Marcoses in here.
Yeah, we got Marcos Rios in the chat, and we got our man, one of our main colorists here. And I love that he's here. Another guy that's really passionate about the Rippaverse. He's
that book is so visually pleasing, man.
Yeah, he is one of the best colorists, and I'm happy to say that, right? That one of the best colorists like in the game, like is working here. Like, I love that. Marcos is insane. But Marcos's colors are something about the cosmic stuff that he just gets. I don't know what it is, but Zaylan already knows some people are gonna be like, this is the best looking book that they have put out. It is nuts.
There's only one book that will probably be able to match Zaylan, and it's probably gonna be Northica, because
Northica is nuts too. That's a good point.
NDA, but doggone.
No, Northica.
Why would you do that?
But that's the thing, though. Marcos's colors on that as well, right? And shout out to Ronaldson, who's a hell of an artist. You've seen some of his covers. You saw he did the Cursed cover as well, and that's up there. That one, there's a one splash page that I keep every day. I go look at of 8 character. I'll say this much.
It's a chick. It's beautiful.
It's a chick. I'll say that much. This splash page is insane. It is insane, man. I can't. Well, trust me, when we get to it, I'll bring it up again. Like, this was what I was talking about. It could, to Carol's point, it could absolutely be a poster. It's insane, man.
Gorgeous.
It is. Yeah, it is insane. Norfolk looks nuts, but yeah, like I said, just all these stories that we're telling here. It's just we're all having a blast, man. And I'm glad that the audience, you guys, are loving them. I'm gonna get some of these super chats in a minute, but I'm glad you guys are loving it because that's what it's about. We want you to have fun. We're doing it for you. You know what I mean? And I appreciate all of you being around and continuing to pre-order and continuing to buy a Rippaverse stuff because it helps keep this thing moving, man. I'm just so very, very excited. All right. Let me get to some of these super chats. Oh, we got Mr. Reese with a 2 says, can I get the voice of Zaylen to narrate my life? It's funny. I was just talking.
Nothing done.
Yeah, no, he's really good. I was just talking with him about some other stuff that we want to do. But yeah, he's man, he is crazy.
What other stuff? Have you been talking to people? What are you doing?
I haven't told you about it yet, Carol.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I haven't, and you're right. It's funny. Him and I, Brian is his name. For you guys who don't know.
Is there a Mrs. voice of Zaylen? Because that voice,
he sounded exactly how I thought he would sound.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. And that's when I was trying everybody out. I was like trying to be as descriptive as possible. I'm like, I have it in my head. Can somebody get it? And Brian, he absolutely freaking nails it. But yeah, we were talking about some other stuff as well. But yeah, he's really good. He's really, really good. Jake Stanley with a 5 says, Carol, I got Queen of Swords and Silence. I just started reading it this morning, so I'm only 4 chapters in, but I'm enjoying it.
Thank you,
Carol. Yeah,
that's my first baby.
For you guys that don't know, Carol is a very talented author.
Oh,
so
we should stream together more. You always say such things.
It's like shower of praises, but no, she's awesome. Go grab all of her work. This dog is like, there's nothing in that bowl, girl. Like, she's like, she has upstairs water, and for whatever reason, she thinks that water is different from the downstairs water, but it's the same water, and she just cleaned it out. It's nothing in there. All right, so we got Eric Guapo with a 10 says, Minnie's win. I know you brought that up. He says still kit bashing and shaping a Blood Ruth. I want to see that diorama. Can't wait to reveal it when it's finished. Please, we will share that out like crazy. Our man's Igor with a 10 says, great, what's up, Ray's my favorite book art-wise we put out so far. How can you correct the edit? Anything Jack does, the man can do no wrong. Jack's good, man. Jack was on the guys. Funny, he had just worked on he's came back to finish some of the other issues that he's working on right now of Great War, and I made sure to tell him, like, hey, I know you does stuff with obviously some of the major publishers. It's a big book that's about to drop. It hasn't yet. That pretty big character that he's doing, that he did the artwork on, that he had to go to finish because it was a previous obligation. I was like, don't worry, I will give you whatever you want.
Right.
To stick around. You don't need to do that at all. But big shout out to him. Awesome dude, easy to work with, and has a lot of passion just in the actual project. Okay, this show went way longer than what I anticipated. Okay,
I'm gonna be real with you. When you said you didn't want it to be longer than an hour and a half, I was like, did you look who you invited?
Yeah, didn't work out. But it was a good.
You shouldn't have invited us.
I'm so sorry. We never shut up.
You said stop.
No. But that was the point. Plus, we had
No.
look. It's not gonna be like that all the time because look, we had some catch up, right? We had 2 books that we needed to go through.
Yeah.
Now that we have the show, and it'll be weekly, we'll be able to have it be more centric, and we won't have to worry about having to always do that. But yeah, I said Garfield's bizarre adventures in chat. He says not complaining. I don't think you guys are. It was a longer show than what we anticipated, but I had a lot of fun. So every week, guys, tell your friends. Every week, 6 p.m. we will be here. It won't always be the same members. There'll probably be some that I won't even host.
Fight for it.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody be fighting for the spots. You'll see. I know people ask about Gothics. I've talked to her about it. She'll be appearing here now and then. Andrew, of course. You'll see a lot of the team members when they have some time, and it'll be just kind of switching out panelists, and it'll be a fun time, and it does feel good to just talk about comics, talk about Rippaverse, like everything Rippaverse. I told y'all and all the promotional stuff that I did for this. I wanted this to be all things Rippaverse. I didn't want to just have the Rippaverse guys come and we start talking about random stuff like cheeseburgers and everything, which is
okay,
cool.
first off, cheeseburgers are really good. Okay?
Yeah, that
They're
is
delicious.
true. We could spend another 30 minutes talking about cheeseburgers.
I will make a character that eats cheeseburgers just to talk about cheeseburgers.
And to be fair, you know, you got Chuck creating all these fast food chains and stuff like that, you know, so we obviously could. But no, the whole point of this is to connect with the audience, connect with all you. We'll be doing some fun things. This is more of a test run for the first episode. I'll have some other cool things ready, actually, that I figured out had worked. As you saw, I was able to pull up some of that stuff, figured out how to work that. So now going into to the next show will be a lot more smooth. I have a lot of things to show you. And yeah, we'll be talking about it. So next week, same time, 6 p.m. Central, we will be back. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks to Carol, Jen, and Sylvia, as well as Kanan, for joining us today. Talking Great War, talking Blood Ruth. I know Blood Ruth especially. We've been itching to discuss that for a while, and I'm glad we finally got to talk. That's why that ran longer. Plus, it was a bigger book. It's a much bigger book than what Great War Separation 1. It's like double the page count. So, thank you all. We will be here. I'm gonna leave this live. We'll see what happens. But I will leave this live. We won't go behind the membership wall. So if you got here late, don't worry about it. You're good to go. You'll be able to view this. So thank you all so much. I'm going to get back to work and see Jordan's in the chat. I saw Jordan send me something. I will be checking that out right after this. So thank you guys so much. We will see you next week. Same time, Monday, 6 p.m. Central.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.